The force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy. For millennia, the Jedi had taught that the force flowed through all life, balanced between light and darkness, creation and destruction. The Sith understood it as power to be seized, bent to one's will. Both philosophies agreed on one fundamental truth: the force was absolute. It was the foundation of reality itself, immutable and eternal. They were wrong. The dimensional barrier between universes is not meant to be crossed. Space-time itself resists intrusion, weaving layers of cosmic fabric that separate one reality from another. But on this day, something punched through that barrier with such overwhelming force that reality itself screamed. High above the lava planet Mustafar, where Darth Vader's fortress stood as a monument to Sith power, the sky tore open. Not metaphorically, the actual sky ripped apart like cloth, revealing a swirling vortex of impossible colors that had no name in any language spoken across the galaxy. Imperial sensors across 3 systems shrieked warnings simultaneously. Hyperspace monitoring stations detected gravitational anomalies that made no sense. Astromech droids suffered cascade failures trying to calculate what their instruments were showing. On Coruscant, the Emperor's throne room flickered as ancient Sith holocrons activated without command, screaming warnings in dead languages. The rift pulsed once, twice, and then something fell through. He descended like a meteor wrapped in golden fire, trailing energy that burned the air itself. The lava rivers below Vader's fortress erupted upward as shockwaves hammered the planet's surface. Mountains crumbled. The carefully constructed landing platforms outside the fortress shattered like glass. Imperial TIE fighters on patrol simply disintegrated as the being's power signature washed over them, their pilots dead before they could scream. Prince Vegeta, last of the Scion royal bloodline, survivor of battles that had consumed entire star systems in his home universe, crashed into the obsidian surface of Mustafar with force that registered on seismic equipment 3 systems away. He rose slowly from the crater his landing had created, dusting volcanic ash from his armor with casual disdain. His white gloves were immaculate despite having just torn through the fabric of reality itself. The blue bodysuit beneath his armor showed no damage. His expression, cold, prideful, utterly contemptuous, surveyed this new galaxy as a conqueror surveying territory that simply didn't know it was conquered yet. Pathetic, Vegeta muttered, feeling the ambient energy of this place. There was power here, yes. Significant power, even. But it was scattered, unfocused, bound by rules and philosophies that weakened it. In his universe, power was refined through combat, through pushing beyond limits, through the crucible of battle. Here, power felt ceremonial, religious, wasted. He could sense them now. Beings of power scattered across this galaxy like stars in the night sky. Some burned with dark intensity, others with serene light. All of them were insects compared to what he'd faced in his own reality. Frisia had been a galactic emperor. Cell had been perfection incarnate. Majin Buu had been the universe's terror. And Vegeta had survived them all, grown stronger from each encounter, transformed into something that transcended mere mortality. This galaxy would provide new challenges. New limits to break. Vegeta's Scouter, modified beyond standard Frisia Force technology through years of personal refinement, activated automatically. Power levels began registering. Interesting. There were thousands of moderate signatures across this world alone, all clustered in that fortress ahead. Soldiers, perhaps. And 2 signatures that actually registered above the baseline, still pathetically weak by his standards, but at least marginally noteworthy. Let's see what this dimension has to offer, Vegeta said, and launched himself into flight. The Scion Prince crossed the distance to Vader's fortress in seconds, his key trail scorching the air behind him. Alarm klaxons began wailing immediately. Turbolaser batteries swiveled to track him, their targeting computers struggling to lock onto something moving at speeds their systems weren't designed to calculate. The weapons fired anyway, emerald bolts of plasma energy that could vaporize starships lancing through the air toward him. Vegeta didn't bother dodging. The turbolaser fire struck his extended palm and simply stopped, the energy dissipating harmlessly against his ki aura. He'd endured worse from training under increased gravity. These weapons were toys. He landed on the fortress's primary landing platform with enough force to crack the duracrete beneath his boots. Stormtroopers were already forming firing lines, their white armor gleaming in the hellish light of Mustafar's lava flows. Officers were shouting orders. Someone was screaming into a comlink about requesting immediate reinforcements from Coruscant. Vegeta crossed his arms, waiting. These soldiers registered barely above 0 on his scouter. Even their strongest leader, a man in a black uniform with an Imperial insignia, read at power level 8. Ordinary humans, essentially. Not even worth the energy expenditure. Identify yourself, the officer commanded, his voice admirably steady despite the fear Vegeta could smell radiating from every pore. You are trespassing on Imperial property under the direct authority of Lord Vader himself. Surrender immediately or what? Vegeta interrupted, his voice cutting through the officer's bluster like a blade. You'll shoot me with those pathetic weapons. You'll call for help from your superiors. He uncrossed his arms, letting his power level rise just slightly, not even 1% of his true strength, but enough. Let me show you the difference between your power and mine. The Scion Prince raised 2 fingers. Big Bang attack. The sphere of ki energy that formed at his fingertips was smaller than a human fist. It contained enough concentrated power to level a city. When Vegeta released it, the blast moved almost lazily across the platform, giving the Imperials nearly a full second to understand what was about to happen to them. The explosion consumed half the fortress's landing area in blue-white fire. Stormtroopers didn't even have time to scream. Duracrete vaporized. Metal twisted into abstract sculptures before melting entirely. The blast carved through 6 levels of the fortress before finally dissipating, leaving a perfectly circular tunnel that exposed room after room of now burning Imperial architecture. When the smoke cleared, Vegeta stood exactly where he'd been, completely untouched by his own attack's backwash. Behind him, the remaining Imperials, those who'd been just outside his attack's radius, were either unconscious from the shockwave or staring in absolute horror. Now then, Vegeta said, cracking his knuckles with deliberate menace. Where are these Inquisitors I'm sensing? I came to this pathetic dimension looking for worthy opponents. Don't disappoint me. Deep within the fortress, in meditation chambers designed to amplify dark side power, 9 figures in black armor felt the disturbance simultaneously. The Grand Inquisitor, former Jedi Temple guard turned hunter of his former brothers, opened his yellow eyes and reached for his spinning lightsaber. Around him, his subordinates, the 2nd sister, the 5th brother, the 7th sister, and 6 others, rose as one. They had hunted Jedi across the galaxy. They had extinguished the light of Force sensitives on 100 worlds. They were the Empire's elite, feared across every system, empowered by the dark side itself. They had no idea that in the next hour, the Inquisitorius would cease to exist. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Grand Inquisitor commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded Jedi Temple guards in another lifetime. Whoever this intruder is, they will learn what happens to those who dare assault an Imperial facility. He reached out through the Force, trying to sense their target's intentions, their fear, their weaknesses. He found nothing. Not emptiness like the Yuuzhan Vong of ancient legend. Not absence. Something worse, a presence so overwhelming that the Force itself seemed to bend around it rather than flow through it. Like trying to sense a black hole. You couldn't perceive it directly, only see how everything around it was pulled into its gravity. The Grand Inquisitor had hunted Jedi Master Luminara Unduli. He had personally executed 3 members of the Jedi Council who survived Order 66. He had stared down Ahsoka Tano herself and lived to report the encounter. Fear was a tool he wielded, not an emotion he experienced. Until now. They emerged onto the shattered landing platform to find their target standing amid the destruction, arms crossed, expression radiating bored contempt. He was shorter than expected, barely taller than a standard human male. His armor was foreign, form-fitting rather than bulky, colored in deep blue with white and gold accents. No visible weapons. No lightsaber. No blaster. Just a man standing in the center of devastation that had killed 200 Imperial personnel and carved through 6 levels of fortress architecture. Finally, Vegeta said, his dark eyes tracking each Inquisitor with the casual attention of a predator counting prey. Something that registers above the insects. Though not by much. His scouter flashed readings across his left eye. The pale one with the spinning blade registered highest at power level 62. Pathetic, but at least detectable. Are you the strongest this galaxy has to offer? Because if so, I wasted my time coming here. Surrender, the Grand Inquisitor declared, his spinning lightsaber creating a defensive pattern as his subordinates flanked outward. The fifth brother, massive and brutal, moved left. The second sister, precise and calculated, moved right. The others spread into attack formation perfected through years of hunting Force sensitives. You have committed acts of terrorism against the Galactic Empire. Lord Vader will want to question you personally before your execution. Vegeta laughed. Actually laughed, the sound cold and mocking. Vader. Yes, I sense him. Stronger than you lot, certainly, but still, he shook his head. No matter. I'll deal with him after I'm done with you. Consider this a warm-up. The fifth brother didn't wait for further posturing. He was a being of action, not words. His massive frame launched forward, augmented by force-enhanced speed, his double-bladed lightsaber aimed to bisect this arrogant fool at the waist. The red plasma blade, capable of cutting through durasteel like paper, swung in a perfect arc toward Vegeta's midsection. Vegeta caught the lightsaber blade with his bare hand. The fifth brother's yellow eyes widened in shock. Impossible. Lightsabers cut through everything, flesh, bone, metal, energy shields. They were unstoppable weapons, refined over thousands of years of Jedi and Sith engineering. Nothing caught a lightsaber blade. Nothing. Is this supposed to be impressive? Vegeta asked, examining the blade as it sputtered and hissed against his palm. His ki aura, invisible to those who couldn't sense energy in the way Scions could, was creating a barrier between his flesh and the plasma. The lightsaber was indeed powerful by this dimension's standards, but it was still just contained energy. And Vegeta had been stopping energy attacks since he was a child. Contained plasma held in a magnetic field. Primitive, but functional I suppose. He squeezed. The lightsaber's blade collapsed inward, the Kyber crystal powering it shattering from the pressure Vegeta's ki aura exerted on its matrix. The fifth brother stumbled backward, staring at his now useless hilt in disbelief. Vegeta's hand shot forward faster than the Inquisitor could process, fingers gripping the fifth brother's face. Disappointing. The Scion Prince lifted the massive Inquisitor off his feet with one hand, then slammed him into the Duracrete platform hard enough to create spiderweb cracks extending 20 meters in every direction. The fifth brother's armor crumpled. Bones shattered. His body went limp instantly. 1 down. 8 to go. Kill him, the Grand Inquisitor roared, and all pretense of coordination vanished as the remaining Inquisitors attacked simultaneously. The second sister came in low, using Form 2's precision to target joints and vulnerable points. The seventh sister attacked from above, leaping with force-enhanced acrobatics. The third brother fired his lightsaber in a throwing arc, the weapon spinning like a deadly disc. The fourth sister reached out with the force, attempting to grip Vegeta's throat and crush his windpipe. The remaining 3 Inquisitors formed a barrier of spinning red blades, advancing in lockstep. Vegeta moved. To the Inquisitors, he simply vanished. One moment he was standing over the fifth brother's broken body. The next, he was behind the third brother. His elbow struck the back of the Inquisitor's head with precisely calculated force, not enough to kill instantly, but enough to shatter vertebrae and send the body tumbling across the platform like a discarded doll. The seventh sister's downward strike hit empty air. Before she could recover, Vegeta appeared beside her in mid-flight, grabbed her wrist, and used her own momentum to spin her into the fourth sister. Both Inquisitors crashed into the fortress wall with bone-breaking force, their lightsabers clattering to the ground as consciousness fled. The second sister, to her credit, adapted fastest. She abandoned offense entirely, calling on the Force to enhance her speed, using every technique Darth Vader had brutally beaten into her during training. She became a blur of motion, her lightsaber a crimson streak as she aimed for Vegeta's eyes, throat, heart, any vital target. Vegeta blocked every strike with 2 fingers. Literally 2 fingers, catching the plasma blade between his index and middle finger, redirecting each thrust with minimal movement. The second sister's strikes grew more desperate, more furious, fueled by dark side rage that had consumed her identity years ago. "You're trained," Vegeta observed clinically, still blocking her attacks with casual disinterest. "Someone taught you proper technique. Disciplined. Efficient." He caught her wrist mid-thrust, stopping her attack entirely. "But you're still weak." He didn't kill her. Instead, he simply flicked her forehead with his free hand. The kinetic force launched her backward like a missile, her body tearing through 3 support columns before finally crashing into a parked TIE fighter, crumpling both body and machine into twisted wreckage. The remaining 4 Inquisitors tried to retreat, finally understanding they were facing something completely beyond their comprehension. The Grand Inquisitor himself reached out through the Force with desperate intensity, pulling chunks of debris, broken turbolaser batteries, even sections of the fortress wall itself, hurling everything at Vegeta in a telekinetic barrage. Vegeta raised one hand. Gallic gun. The purple energy wave that erupted from his palm consumed everything, debris, fortress sections, and 3 of the 4 remaining Inquisitors. The blast carved through Mustafar's surface, creating a canyon that hadn't existed 10 seconds prior. Lava rushed in to fill the newly created chasm, swallowing what little remained of the Inquisitors' bodies. Only the Grand Inquisitor survived, and only because Vegeta allowed it. The former Jedi Temple guard fell to his knees, his spinning lightsaber deactivated and forgotten. He stared up at this being, this impossible creature that had just destroyed the Empire's elite Force-sensitive hunters in less than 3 minutes. "Please," the Grand Inquisitor whispered, all pride stripped away, all dark side conviction shattered. He was begging. Something he hadn't done since before his fall. What are you?" Vegeta looked down at him with eyes that held no mercy, no cruelty, just simple fact. "I am Prince Vegeta of the Scion race. I have conquered galaxies. I have destroyed gods. And I came to this dimension seeking worthy opponents." He turned away dismissively. "You are not worthy. Then why let me live?" "Because someone needs to deliver a message." Vegeta began walking toward the fortress interior, where he could sense 2 more significant power signatures. One of them was that Vader presence, finally approaching. "Tell your Empire. Tell your Emperor. Tell this Vader I sense coming." He glanced back over his shoulder, his expression carved from stone. "Tell them that the Scion Prince has arrived. Tell them their galaxy now belongs to me. And tell them that anyone who wishes to dispute that claim is welcome to try." The Grand Inquisitor could only watch as Vegeta disappeared into the fortress, leaving behind the broken bodies of 8 Inquisitors, half a destroyed Imperial facility, and the smoking ruins of everything the Empire's Force-sensitive division had built. Above Mustafar, in the cold void of space, a massive star destroyer emerged from hyperspace. Darth Vader's personal flagship, the Executor, had arrived. The Dark Lord of the Sith had felt the disturbance from 3 systems away, felt the impossible presence, felt his Inquisitors die one by one, felt the Force itself recoiling from whatever had entered this galaxy. In his meditation chamber, Vader stood, his mechanical breathing echoing in the enclosed space. Through the Force, he reached out toward Mustafar, toward his fortress, toward the being that had just announced its intent to conquer the galaxy. And for the first time since his transformation on this very planet, since his rebirth in agony and machine parts, Darth Vader felt something he thought had burned away with Anakin Skywalker. Anticipation. The Executor's command bridge was silent except for the rhythmic, mechanical breathing of its master. Imperial officers stood at rigid attention, none daring to move, none willing to draw Darth Vader's attention as he stood before the main viewport, his massive frame silhouetted against Mustafar's hellish glow. Below, his fortress burned. Smoke rose in black columns from the shattered landing platforms. Emergency beacons screamed across all Imperial frequencies. 9 Inquisitors dead or incapacitated. 200 Imperial personnel vaporized. 6 levels of fortress architecture carved away by a single energy blast. And the intruder responsible was still down there, casually walking through Vader's personal sanctum as if it were a public museum. Admiral Jared stood 3 meters behind the Dark Lord, his hands clasped behind his back to hide their trembling. He'd served under Vader for 6 years, survived longer than most officers assigned to the Executor, and he'd learned to read the subtle shifts in the Dark Lord's posture that signaled his mood. Right now, every indicator suggested Vader was on the edge of violence. "My lord," Jared ventured carefully, "the Inquisitorius has been neutralized. Shall I deploy ground forces? We have 2 full legions of stormtroopers ready for." "No," Vader's voice cut through the Admiral's words like a vibrablade through flesh. "Your soldiers would die as uselessly as the Inquisitors. This being is different." The Dark Lord's fists clenched at his sides, servos whining softly. Powerful beyond conventional measure. The Force struggles to perceive him clearly. That admission alone sent chills through every officer within earshot. Darth Vader, the Emperor's right hand, the galaxy's most feared Force user, admitting to uncertainty. Admiral Jared swallowed hard and asked the question no one else dared voice. "What are your orders, Lord Vader?" The Dark Lord was silent for 3 long breaths, mechanical, artificial breaths that had replaced natural respiration decades ago. Then he turned from the viewport, his cape swirling dramatically despite the lack of wind. "I will confront this intruder personally. If he seeks conquest, he will learn what true power means in this galaxy." Vader began walking toward the bridge exit, his heavy boots echoing with each step. "Prepare a Lambda-class shuttle. And ready the fleet for orbital bombardment on my signal." "You intend to destroy your own fortress, my lord?" Vader paused at the doorway. "If this being proves as dangerous as I sense, the fortress is already lost. Better to reduce it to molten slag than let him use it as a foothold." The helmet turned slightly, red lenses focusing on the Admiral. "And Jared?" "Contact Coruscant. Inform the Emperor that we have a situation requiring his attention. Use Priority Alpha protocols." Priority Alpha. The code reserved for galaxy-threatening emergencies. Jared's face went pale, but he saluted crisply. "At once, my lord." Vader departed, leaving behind a bridge full of officers who suddenly realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Darth Vader had just requested reinforcements. Inside the fortress, Vegeta walked through corridors designed to intimidate, to crush the spirit of anyone who entered uninvited. Sith architecture leaned heavily into psychological warfare, sharp angles, oppressive shadows, meditation chambers that amplified dark side energy. The walls themselves seemed to radiate malevolence, ancient Sith runes carved into obsidian stone. Vegeta found it gaudy. "This Vader character has no sense of aesthetic," the Scion Prince muttered, examining a particularly elaborate relief sculpture depicting some historical Sith massacre. "Compensation, probably. Overdesigned everything to make up for personal inadequacy." He'd seen it before. Frisia's throne room had been similar, all gold and purple, designed to make visitors feel small and insignificant. It never worked on those who truly understood power. His scouter pinged. 2 signatures approaching from below. One registered at power level 800, significantly stronger than the Inquisitors, finally something approaching interesting. The other was weaker, barely 70, probably an escort or assistant. Vegeta descended through the fortress, following the power signature like a predator tracking wounded prey. He passed meditation chambers, training rooms equipped with remote droids, trophy rooms containing lightsabers that had belonged to dead Jedi. Evidence of systematic genocide, organized and efficient. These Inquisitors had been hunters, executioners of an entire culture. Not that Vegeta cared about their morality. He'd served Frisia, after all. Genocide was just another military tactic when you were conquering territory. But there was a difference between the Scion approach, overwhelming force, honest brutality, and this sneaking, hunting, execution-style elimination. At least Scions had the decency to be straightforward about destruction. The corridor opened into a massive chamber, some kind of central meditation room dominated by a Bacta tank that still bubbled with residual healing fluids. Sith artifacts lined the walls. And standing in the center, having just arrived through a lower entrance, was a figure that finally made Vegeta's scouter register something worth noticing. Darth Vader stood over 2 meters tall, his black armor reflecting the red emergency lighting that bathed the chamber. His cape hung motionless despite the ventilation systems running at emergency capacity. The mechanical breathing filled the space, rhythmic and relentless. His presence in the Force was overwhelming, a black hole of dark side energy that crushed down on everything around him. Behind Vader, a single Imperial officer in a gray uniform stood at nervous attention, clearly regretting every life choice that had led to this moment. "You are the intruder," Vader stated, his voice carrying that distinctive mechanical modulation. "Not a question. A declaration. You have destroyed Imperial property. Killed Imperial servants. Declared intent to conquer this galaxy." The Dark Lord's right hand moved to his belt, fingers closing around the cylindrical hilt of his lightsaber. "I am Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. This galaxy belongs to the Empire. And you will die for your presumption." Vegeta smirked, crossing his arms in his characteristic stance. Finally, someone with actual presence. This Vader registered at 800, not remotely close to Vegeta's own power, but at least it was something. "Vader. Yes, I've been sensing you. You're the strongest signature on this pathetic lava ball." He cocked his head slightly, studying the Dark Lord with analytical precision. "Mostly machine, I see. Some kind of life support system keeping you functional. Tragic backstory, I assume. A battle you lost? A weakness you couldn't overcome?" The temperature in the chamber dropped noticeably. Vader's breathing remained steady, but his free hand clenched into a fist. "You know nothing of power. Nothing of the dark side. You are an outsider, an anomaly. The Force itself rejects your presence." "The Force." Vegeta laughed, the sound echoing off obsidian walls. "That's what you call the energy I've been sensing? Quaint. In my universe, we call it Ki. Life energy. Every living thing produces it, and those strong enough learn to control it, manipulate it, weaponize it." He uncrossed his arms, letting his own power rise slightly, just enough for Vader to sense the difference in their respective strengths. "Your Force is impressive for this dimension. But it's nothing compared to what I've mastered." Vader's lightsaber ignited with that characteristic snap hiss, the red blade casting crimson light across his black armor. "Then you will die enlightened." The Dark Lord attacked with the speed and precision that had made him the Empire's ultimate weapon. His Form V combat style, Gem So, was built around overwhelming power and counterattacks. The lightsaber came down in a vertical slash that would bisect a normal opponent from crown to groin. Vader's Force-enhanced strength added weight behind every strike, his mechanical limbs immune to the fatigue that limited organic warriors. Vegeta caught the lightsaber blade between 2 fingers, exactly as he'd done with the 5th brother. But Vader was not the 5th brother. The Dark Lord immediately adjusted, his free hand shooting forward to unleash a torrent of force energy directly into Vegeta's chest at point-blank range. Force push, concentrated and amplified by decades of dark side mastery, enough kinetic energy to crumple a Dura-Steel wall. Vegeta slid backward 3 meters, his boots carving trenches in the stone floor, but remained standing. His fingers still held Vader's lightsaber blade, the plasma crackling angrily against his ki aura. "Better," Vegeta admitted, genuine approval coloring his voice. "You're not just strong. You're experienced. A warrior, not just a thug with power." He released the lightsaber and launched his own attack, his fist driving toward Vader's chest at speeds that made the air scream. The Dark Lord brought his lightsaber up in a defensive arc, but Vegeta's punch simply went around the blade, striking Vader's chestplate directly. The impact cratered the armor, bending Dura-Steel inward, and launched the Dark Lord backward through 3 support columns. Vader crashed through the far wall, his body tearing through obsidian and Dura-Steel before finally stopping in what had been a storage chamber. Alarms shrieked. Emergency bulkheads began descending. The Imperial officer who'd accompanied Vader turned and ran, his survival instinct finally overriding his duty. Vegeta walked through the destruction casually, his hands in his pockets. "Get up, Vader. I know that didn't kill you. Your armor's protecting vital systems, and I felt you reinforce yourself with that force energy at the last second." He stopped at the edge of the hole his punch had created, looking down at where Vader was already rising from the rubble. "You're durable. Good. I hate it when my opponents break too quickly." Darth Vader stood, dust and debris falling from his damaged armor. His breathing remained steady despite the crater in his chestplate, despite the warning lights flashing inside his helmet display. The Force flowed through him, dark side energy responding to his rage, his hatred, his absolute refusal to be defeated. Around him, loose debris began to float, lifted by telekinetic power. "You have made a grave mistake," Vader said, his voice somehow colder despite the mechanical modulation. "You have given me reason to demonstrate why I am the Emperor's chosen. Why the Jedi fell before me. Why this galaxy fears my name." The Dark Lord raised both hands, and the entire chamber responded. Every piece of loose material, debris, broken columns, Sith artifacts, even sections of the floor itself, ripped free and converged on Vegeta in a crushing sphere of telekinetic force. Vader was attempting to simply compress the Scion Prince into paste through overwhelming gravitational pressure. Inside the sphere of debris, Vegeta's power exploded outward. Golden light erupted from his body, his hair flashing from black to gold, his aura igniting like a star given physical form. His power level skyrocketed from 800 to over 9,000 in an instant. The transformation took less than a second. Super Saiyan, the legendary form that had terrified the universe, the power that had slain Frieza himself. The debris sphere shattered. Telekinetic force meant nothing against energy of this magnitude. Chunks of stone and metal vaporized simply from being too close to Vegeta's transformed state. The golden aura pushed outward like a nuclear shockwave, carving away walls, ceiling, floor, everything within 20 meters simply ceased to exist, reduced to atoms by the pressure of Vegeta's ki. When the light faded enough for Vader to see clearly, the Scion Prince stood in the center of a perfectly spherical crater, his golden hair spiked upward, his teal eyes locked onto the Dark Lord with predatory focus. "Now then," Super Saiyan Vegeta said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the Force itself tremble, "shall we continue?" Darth Vader had faced many powerful opponents in his decades of service to the Empire. He had dueled Jedi Masters who had trained for centuries. He had confronted Force wielders empowered by ancient artifacts. He had stood before the Emperor himself and felt the full weight of Sith lightning tear through his systems. Pain was an old companion. Defeat was a distant memory from his days as Anakin Skywalker. But fear? True fear. That was something he thought had died on Mustafar along with his wife, his identity, and his humanity. The golden-haired being standing in the crater radiated power that made Vader's Force senses scream warnings. His scouter's readings had been reliable until now, 800 for Vader, manageable numbers for everyone else. But this transformation had shattered those calculations. The energy signature was off the scale, literally beyond what his equipment could measure. His helmet's internal displays were flashing error messages, trying to quantify something that defied quantification. Impressive, Vader admitted, his mechanical breathing the only sound in the destroyed chamber. Around them, fires burned where his fortress's life support systems had been ruptured. Coolant leaked from broken pipes, hissing against superheated stone. You possess abilities I have never encountered. This transformation, it draws upon something beyond the Force. Beyond your Force, perhaps, Vegeta corrected, his golden aura pulsing with barely restrained energy. In my universe, this is called Super Saiyan. A transformation achieved by only the strongest warriors of my race. It multiplies my base power by 50 times. He rolled his shoulders, adjusting to the form with practiced ease. I haven't needed to use it in months. Your Inquisitors died without seeing even a fraction of my true strength. But you, Vader, you've earned this much respect. The Dark Lord's fists clenched. Respect. This outsider spoke of respect while standing in the ruins of his fortress, having slaughtered his servants, having demonstrated power that threatened everything the Empire had built. The Emperor will sense this disturbance. He will come. And when he does, you will learn what true mastery of the dark side means. Your Emperor. Vegeta's smirk widened. Yes, I sense him too. Weak signature from here, but concentrated. Refined. More skilled than you, though not necessarily stronger. The Saiyan Prince began walking forward, each step leaving glowing footprints in the molten stone. I look forward to meeting him. After I'm done with you. Vader didn't wait for Vegeta to close the distance. His tactical mind, honed through countless battles, recognized that close-quarters combat was suicide against an opponent of this magnitude. He reached out through the Force with every ounce of dark side power he possessed, targeting not Vegeta himself but the environment around him. The entire fortress section groaned. Structural supports weakened by Vegeta's earlier attacks now failed completely under Vader's telekinetic assault. Thousands of tons of obsidian, durasteel, and stone collapsed inward, a controlled demolition designed to bury the intruder under the weight of the fortress itself. Simultaneously, Vader pulled on the planet's volcanic activity, using the Force to crack open lava channels that ran beneath the chamber floor. Superheated magma erupted upward in geysers of liquid stone, each stream aimed precisely at where Vegeta stood. The combined assault, architectural collapse and volcanic fury, would have killed any normal opponent instantly, buried them under so much mass and heat that not even their bones would remain. Vegeta simply stood there, arms crossed, letting the fortress collapse on top of him. The avalanche of debris hit his Super Saiyan aura and stopped dead, frozen in midair by the pressure of his ki. Lava streams struck his body and splashed off harmlessly, the temperature insufficient to even warm his skin. Thousands of tons of crushing weight meant nothing to someone who trained in gravity chambers that multiplied Earth's natural pull by hundreds of times. Is that it? Vegeta asked, his voice carrying clearly through the chaos. Throwing rocks and hot liquid? Frieza destroyed entire planets. Cell-absorbed beings to steal their power. Majin Buu reknit himself from vapor. The golden aura pulsed, and everything Vader had pulled down on him, every piece of debris, every drop of magma, exploded outward in a spherical shockwave that carved a 100-meter crater into Mustafar's surface. You're going to need to do better than environmental hazards. Vader was already moving before the shockwave cleared, using the Force to propel himself at speeds that blurred even to enhanced perception. His lightsaber came in from 3 different angles simultaneously, impossible geometry that only someone manipulating time and space through the Force could achieve. It was the same technique he'd used to destroy the Jedi Temple, the same attack pattern that had killed Master Cin Dralik and a dozen temple guards. Vegeta caught all 3 strikes. Literally caught them, each afterimage of Vader's attack was intercepted by the Scion Prince moving faster than the Dark Lord could track, creating his own afterimages that blocked each slash with bare hands. When the Force-assisted assault ended, Vegeta was standing exactly where he'd been, completely unharmed, while Vader was breathing harder than usual. Speed. Telekinesis. Environmental manipulation. Vegeta ticked off each technique on his fingers. You're creative, I'll give you that. Using everything available rather than relying on raw power alone. Smart. The Scion Prince's expression hardened. But strategy without sufficient strength is just desperation disguised as intelligence. He vanished. No force warning. No sensory indication. One moment Vegeta was standing 30 meters away, the next his fist was buried in Vader's stomach, the impact so precise it bypassed armor plating entirely and struck the organic components beneath. The Dark Lord's mechanical breathing stuttered, his system screaming warnings as internal damage registered across multiple organs. Vegeta's second punch hit Vader's shoulder, dislocating the cybernetic joint with surgical precision. The third strike came from below, an uppercut that launched the Dark Lord 50 meters into the air, his massive frame tumbling like a broken doll. Before Vader could recover, Vegeta appeared above him, both hands clasped together, and brought them down on the Dark Lord's back in a hammer blow that sent him crashing back to Mustafar's surface at terminal velocity. The impact crater was 15 meters deep. Vader lay at the bottom, his armor cracked in a dozen places, his breathing ragged and uneven. Warning lights painted the inside of his helmet red. Life support was at 60%. Structural integrity compromised. Mobility systems damaged. His connection to the Force was the only thing keeping him conscious, dark side energy flooding his broken body with artificial vitality. Through sheer will, Vader stood. His left arm hung useless, the cybernetic shoulder destroyed. His chest plate was caved in so deeply it pressed against his organic components. But he stood, because Darth Vader did not yield. Ever. You cannot be defeated by simple strength, Vader gasped between mechanical breaths. The Force is more than power. It is destiny. Balance. The will of the galaxy itself. Destiny. Vegeta descended slowly, landing a few meters from the broken Sith Lord. His Super Saiyan aura had faded slightly, no longer needing the full power output. I destroyed my own destiny the day I broke free from Frieza's control. I shattered prophecy when I became Super Saiyan through my own will, not some legendary nonsense. And I transcended balance when I learned that power doesn't care about philosophy, it simply is. Vader's remaining functional hand raised, fingers splayed. This was it. His final technique, the one he'd learned from his master, the one that had broken Jedi who thought themselves invincible. Force lightning erupted from his fingertips, not the measured punishment he used on subordinates, but the full fury of the dark side channeled through hatred, pain, and absolute refusal to accept defeat. The lightning struck Vegeta dead on, millions of volts of force energy tearing through the air, the same attack that had reduced Jedi Knights to convulsing husks. It was power drawn from suffering, from the dark side's deepest wells, amplified by Vader's decades of rage. Vegeta stood in the lightning stream, completely unaffected. The electricity danced across his Super Saiyan aura and dissipated harmlessly. He'd tanked worse from android battles. He'd endured energy attacks that could sterilize planets. Force lightning, for all its spiritual significance in this galaxy, was just another form of electricity. And electricity required a ground to be effective. Energy attacks won't work, Vegeta said flatly, walking forward through the Force lightning as if it were rain. I've trained my body to withstand and absorb energy since I was a child. Your dark side power is impressive, but it's still just energy. And energy, he grabbed Vader's outstretched hand, crushing the gauntlet and the mechanical components beneath, is my specialty. Vader's Force lightning sputtered and died. The Dark Lord stood there, beaten, broken, his legendary reputation shattered as thoroughly as his armor. For the first time in decades, Darth Vader had encountered something he genuinely could not defeat. "Kill me then," Vader demanded, his voice carrying the barest hint of Anakin Skywalker's old pride. "Finish it. Prove your superiority." Vegeta released Vader's crushed hand and stepped back, his golden hair beginning to fade back to black as he powered down from Super Saiyan. The transformation had been overkill for this fight, but he'd wanted to make a statement. "No. You're more useful alive." He turned away, dismissing Vader as if the Dark Lord were no longer worth his attention. "Return to your Emperor. Tell him what happened here. Tell him that the Saiyan Prince doesn't fight to kill every opponent, I fight to prove dominance. And right now, this entire galaxy needs to understand that its previous power structures are obsolete." Above them, through the destroyed fortress levels, the sky was visible. And in that sky, the massive silhouette of the Executor hung in orbit, its turbolasers beginning to glow with pre-fire energy. Admiral Jared had followed orders. If Vader fell, the fortress would be reduced to atoms. Vegeta sensed the orbital weapons charging, his key detection easily picking up the energy signatures building in those massive cannons. He smirked. "Your subordinates are loyal. I respect that." He looked back at Vader one last time. "But if they fire on me, I'll destroy that ship and everyone on it. Then I'll track down your Emperor and demonstrate exactly what happens when inferior beings challenge a Saiyan warrior." The Saiyan Prince launched himself into the air, golden aura reigniting as he accelerated toward the Executor at speeds that made atmospheric entry look gentle. Within seconds, he was in space, somehow standing in vacuum without any life support, on the Executor's hull, directly in front of the bridge viewport. Admiral Jared stared through the transparisteel at the impossible being who had just beaten Darth Vader into submission, and who was now casually standing in hard vacuum as if it were a pleasant day on Coruscant. The Admiral's hand hovered over the firing controls. One command and every turbolaser on the Executor would fire simultaneously, enough concentrated energy to glass a continent. Vegeta raised one finger and pointed it at the bridge. The message was clear: try it, and you all die. Jared's hand moved away from the firing controls. He was a loyal Imperial officer, but he wasn't suicidal. Whatever this being was, whatever power it represented, it had just proven that the Empire's greatest weapon, Darth Vader himself, was insufficient. Down on Mustafar's surface, Vader collapsed to his knees, his damaged systems finally overwhelming even his Force-sustained consciousness. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the golden light of the Saiyan Prince ascending into the void, leaving behind a shattered fortress, a broken Sith Lord, and the first real challenge to Imperial supremacy the galaxy had seen in decades. The Rebel Alliance's headquarters on Yavin 4 was a study in controlled chaos. Converted from ancient Massassi temples, the base housed hundreds of personnel, pilots, mechanics, intelligence operatives, and the Alliance's command structure. General Jan Dodonna stood before a holographic display, analyzing Imperial fleet movements, when every communications console in the war room lit up simultaneously. "General." Lieutenant Bren called from her station, her headset crackling with overlapping transmissions. "We're receiving reports from across Imperial channels, they're not even encrypting properly. Something's happened on Mustafar." Mon Mothma entered the war room, her white robes sweeping the stone floor, her expression carrying the controlled concern that had become her trademark. Behind her, Bail Organa moved with the careful dignity of a man who'd spent decades in galactic politics. Both looked to Dodonna for explanation. "What are we looking at, General?" Mon Mothma asked. Dodonna manipulated the holographic controls, pulling up intercepted Imperial transmissions. The decoded messages painted an impossible picture. According to these reports, an unknown entity attacked Vader's fortress on Mustafar 3 hours ago. The entire Inquisitorius was neutralized, all 9 members either killed or critically wounded. Vader himself engaged the intruder and was, he paused, rechecking the data as if unable to believe what he was reading. Defeated. Badly. The war room fell silent. Every person present understood the magnitude of that statement. Darth Vader was the Empire's nightmare made flesh, the Jedi killer, the enforcer who had crushed a dozen rebel cells personally. The idea of him being defeated wasn't just shocking, it bordered on impossible. Defeated by whom? Bail Organa stepped closer to the holographic display, his diplomatic mind already racing through implications. The Empire has enemies, certainly, but none with the power to challenge Vader directly. That's the concerning part. Dodonna isolated one transmission, a garbled emergency broadcast from the executor. Listen to this. The recorded voice was shaking, barely controlled panic from an Imperial officer who'd clearly witnessed something that shattered his worldview, not human, possibly not even from this galaxy. Power readings are beyond any scale we have. Survived orbital assault parameters. Lord Vader is, condition critical. The entity demonstrated abilities inconsistent with known Force traditions. Request immediate, static consumed the rest. Mon Mothma's composed expression cracked slightly. Something that even the Force cannot categorize. She looked to Dodonna. Could this be a new Imperial weapon that malfunctioned? Some experiment that turned against its creators? Unlikely. A new voice entered the conversation. Princess Leia Organa strode into the war room, still wearing her field uniform from the previous day's supply run. Her dark hair was pulled back practically, her expression sharp with intelligence inherited from both her adoptive and biological fathers. I've been monitoring those same transmissions. The Empire's communications are in disarray, not the coordinated damage control they deploy if one of their experiments went wrong. This is genuine confusion. Fear, even. Fear. Bail looked at his daughter with paternal concern. The Empire doesn't fear. It projects fear. Not anymore. Leia manipulated the holographic display, pulling up sensor data from rebel spy satellites positioned in adjacent systems. We have gravitational readings from Mustafar that suggest localized energy outputs equivalent to a Star Destroyer's reactor going critical. But these spikes lasted for seconds, not the sustained burn of a reactor failure. And there's this, she isolated a specific data stream. Dimensional anomalies. Hyperspace readings that don't match any known ship signature. Something entered this galaxy from outside. Mon Mothma processed this information with the careful consideration that made her the Alliance's leader. If this entity is hostile to the Empire, and powerful enough to defeat Vader, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. We need to make contact, Leia said immediately. Before Palpatine does. If there's even a chance this being could be reasoned with, convinced to aid the rebellion. Or it could be worse than the Empire. General Dodonna's military pragmatism cut through the hope. We don't know its motives, its origin, or its ultimate goals. For all we know, we're looking at an invasion force that simply decided to eliminate the strongest opposition first. Then we observe, Mon Mothma decided. Carefully. Leia, select your best intelligence team. I want eyes on this situation, but no direct contact until we understand what we're dealing with. She turned to Dodonna. General, what's the Empire's response? According to intercepted communications, Palpatine has recalled Vader to Coruscant. The Executor is withdrawing from Mustafar. And they've issued priority alpha alerts to every Imperial garrison within 10 systems, defensive postures, not offensive. Dodonna highlighted several Star Destroyers converging on Coruscant. The Emperor is consolidating his forces. He's preparing for something. Bail Organa stroked his beard thoughtfully. In all my years observing Palpatine, I've never seen him react defensively. He's always 3 steps ahead, always controlling the narrative. If this entity has him genuinely concerned, then we're all in danger, Mon Mothma finished. Or we've been given an unprecedented opportunity. She looked around the war room at the assembled rebel leadership. Either way, the galaxy has changed. We need to adapt faster than the Empire does. On Coruscant, in the Imperial Palace that had once been the Jedi Temple, Emperor Palpatine sat on his throne in the deepest meditation he'd achieved in decades. The throne room was empty except for his crimson-robed royal guard standing motionless at their posts. Before him, holographic displays showed data streaming in from across the galaxy, sensor readings, intercepted transmissions, and most importantly, direct reports from Vader himself. The Emperor's ancient face, hidden beneath his hood, showed no emotion. But internally, his mind worked through possibilities and contingencies with the speed of a being who had orchestrated the fall of the Jedi Order and the rise of an empire. He'd felt at the moment the dimensional barrier had been breached. Felt the arrival of something that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist according to every law of the Force he'd mastered over nearly a century of life. Power without midichlorians. Strength without the Force. It was like discovering that mathematics itself had been wrong all along, that 2 plus 2 sometimes equaled 5, and reality simply adjusted to accommodate the impossibility. Fascinating, Palpatine whispered to the empty throne room. His withered fingers steepled before him. An outsider. A being from beyond the edges of our galaxy, perhaps beyond our very dimension. His yellow eyes gleamed beneath his hood. The Force brings all things into balance. If such power has arrived, it must serve a purpose. The question is whether that purpose aligns with my designs. The massive doors to the throne room opened. 4 royal guards entered first, followed by a repulsor-supported medical pod. Inside the pod, visible through the transparent steel canopy, Darth Vader lay unconscious. His armor was shattered, his cybernetics sparking where Vegeta's strikes had broken through shielding. Medical droids hovered around the pod, their instruments monitoring vital signs that flickered dangerously low. The pod settled before the throne. The Emperor descended the steps slowly, his cane tapping against polished stone, until he stood beside his apprentice's broken form. For a long moment, he simply observed, his perception reaching through the Force to assess the damage. Extensive. Vader's organic components had been pushed to their limits. His mechanical systems would require complete rebuilding. But more concerning than the physical damage was the psychological impact. The Emperor could sense it through their Force bond, doubt. Fear. The absolute certainty that had made Vader such an effective enforcer had been shattered along with his armor. So, Palpatine said softly, the mighty Darth Vader has learned humility. There was no mockery in his voice, only clinical observation. Tell me, my apprentice. This being that defeated you, did you sense the dark side in him? Light? Any alignment with the Force whatsoever? Vader's eyes flickered open behind his cracked helmet. His breathing was irregular, life support struggling to maintain even basic function. No. Master, he rasped, each word clearly causing pain. He exists, outside the Force. His power, drawn from something else. Life energy, but not midichlorians. Raw strength, beyond anything I've encountered. He calls himself Vegeta. Prince of the Scion race. Scion. Palpatine rolled the word around in his mouth, tasting it. Not a species in any Imperial database. Not a civilization we've contacted. Which confirms my suspicion, he's from beyond our galaxy entirely, possibly from another dimension. The Emperor's fingers traced patterns in the air, Force energy responding to his will. And he defeated you while holding back. You sensed that, didn't you? That he could have killed you at any moment but chose not to. Yes, Master. The admission clearly cost Vader something. He wanted to send a message. That the galaxy's power structures are obsolete. That we are beneath him. Palpatine's dry laugh echoed through the throne room. Arrogant. Powerful, yes, but arrogant. Arrogance is a weakness, Lord Vader. One we can exploit. The Emperor turned away from the medical pod, ascending back to his throne. You will be repaired. Your armor rebuilt stronger than before. And while you recover, I will prepare. Master. Even through pain, Vader's tactical mind was working. You do not intend to destroy him immediately. Destroy. Palpatine settled onto his throne, steepling his fingers once more. Why would I destroy the most interesting development in decades? No, Lord Vader. I intend to understand him. Study him. And if possible, break him. Turn him into the weapon the Empire deserves. The Emperor's eyes glowed yellow in the darkness. After all, what is the dark side but the corruption of absolute power? And this Vegeta radiates power like a star radiates light. Such brilliance is wasted on independence. It should serve a higher purpose. And if he cannot be turned, then he will be eliminated. Palpatine's voice carried absolute certainty. But not by conventional means. Not by fleets or armies or even Sith sorcery. No, if this Scion Prince must be destroyed, it will be through his own nature. You said he was arrogant, proud, seeking worthy opponents. A thin smile crossed the Emperor's withered face. Then we shall give him exactly what he desires. We shall give him challenges. Opponents. Situations where his power alone is insufficient. And in his frustration, in his desperate search for meaning in this new galaxy, we shall offer him purpose. Vader processed this, his tactical mind recognizing the brilliance of the strategy. The dark side offers what the light cannot. Freedom. Power without restriction. Precisely, my apprentice. Palpatine gestured dismissively to the medical droids. Now go. Be repaired. Grow stronger. And when you return, we shall introduce this Vegeta to the full depths of what the dark side can offer. Either he kneels, or he burns. There is no third option. The medical pod was guided out by the royal guards, leaving Palpatine alone in his throne room once more. The Emperor sat in silence for several minutes, his mind reaching across the galaxy through the Force, searching for the anomaly that had disrupted his carefully constructed order. He found it in orbit above Mustafar, a golden flicker in the Force, a presence that shouldn't exist. Vegeta hadn't left. He was still there, floating in hard vacuum, apparently surveying the destroyed fortress below with the casual interest of a tourist examining ruins. Palpatine withdrew his perception carefully. If this Scion could sense Force users, there was no point in revealing more than necessary. Better to observe, to plan, to prepare the perfect trap. The Emperor had destroyed the Jedi by understanding their weaknesses. He would do the same with this outsider. Welcome to my galaxy, Prince Vegeta, Palpatine whispered. Let us see if your power is matched by your wisdom. Somehow, I suspect it is not. Vegeta floated in the vacuum above Mustafar, arms crossed, watching Imperial ships scramble like insects whose nest had been disturbed. 3 star destroyers had arrived in the past hour, positioning themselves in defensive formations around the planet. Squadrons of TIE fighters patrolled the orbital space, their pilots no doubt terrified but maintaining discipline. Below, what remained of Vader's fortress smoldered, a monument to the Scion Prince's introduction to this galaxy. He'd been in this dimension for 6 hours, and already he was disappointed. The Inquisitors had been pathetic. Vader had been interesting for approximately 3 minutes before proving insufficient. The Empire's response was predictable military maneuvering, quantity over quality, believing that numbers could compensate for the fundamental power gap. It reminded him of Frisia's approach, throwing endless soldiers at problems that required genuine strength to solve. Vegeta's scouter pinged. Multiple power signatures approaching from the planet's surface, not Imperial this time. Different energy patterns, less mechanical, more organic. His display counted 6 distinct signatures, none particularly impressive individually, but their approach vector suggested deliberate intent rather than random patrol. More insects come to investigate, Vegeta muttered, though of course no sound carried in vacuum. Still, old habits died hard. He waited, curious to see what this galaxy would throw at him next. The 6 signatures emerged from Mustafar's atmosphere in small one-person craft, not military vessels, but civilian freighters modified for speed and stealth. They spread into a loose formation, maintaining what they probably thought was a safe distance from the being who destroyed an imperial fortress. Vegeta's enhanced senses picked up their transmissions to each other, some kind of encrypted communication that his scouter's translation protocols easily decoded. Visual confirmation. Target is humanoid, approximately 1.65 meters tall, appears to be in vacuum without life support. How is that possible? No species can survive hard vacuum without. Doesn't matter how. What matters is that's the thing that beat Vader. Command wants intel, not speculation. We're supposed to observe, not engage. This is a reconnaissance mission only. Vegeta smirked. Reconnaissance. They were spies, then. Not Imperial, based on their nervous chatter and the way they were hiding their ship signatures from the star destroyers below. Rebels, perhaps. This galaxy seemed to have the typical Imperial versus insurgent dynamic that plagued most civilizations too weak to maintain order through strength alone. One of the ships broke formation, moving closer. Bolder than the others, or perhaps more foolish. The pilot's power signature registered at 9, barely worth noticing, but there was something different about this one. A spark of that force energy, untrained and undisciplined, but present. Female, based on the voice patterns his scouter was picking up. This is crazy, Hera, another voice transmitted. You're getting too close. We need better readings, the female voice, Hera, responded. Besides, if he wanted to destroy us, we'd already be dead. He's just floating there, watching us. Perceptive, Vegeta noted. This one had tactical sense at least. The ship, a modified VCX-100 light freighter painted in a garish orange and white pattern, positioned itself 50 meters from Vegeta's position. Through the cockpit transparisteel, he could see the pilot clearly, a Twi'lek female, green-skinned, with the characteristic head-tails of her species. Her expression was tense but controlled, hands steady on the controls despite facing something that had shattered the Empire's greatest enforcer. She activated an external speaker system. My name is Hera Syndulla. I represent parties interested in your arrival. We mean no harm. We only wish to talk. Vegeta regarded her silently for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Talk. As if conversation mattered when power was the only true language. But curiosity got the better of him. These weren't Imperials, which meant they represented a different faction. Understanding the political landscape was tactically sound, even if their actual strength was laughable. He gestured toward the ship, a simple, come closer, motion. Hera's hands tightened on the controls, but she complied, bringing the Ghost, as her ship was apparently named, within 10 meters. At this range, Vegeta could sense everyone aboard, the Twi'lek pilot, a Lazat warrior with above-average strength for this galaxy, a human Jedi with force sensitivity registering around 70, a Mandalorian female, an astromech droid, and a teenage human boy. A mismatched crew of outcasts and rebels. Can you hear me? Hera asked through the external speakers. Vegeta rolled his eyes and launched himself toward the ship. The crew inside clearly panicked, he could sense their heart rate spiking, hands reaching for weapons, but he simply landed on the hull with magnetic key manipulation, walked to the airlock, and ripped the outer door open with casual strength that bent Durasteel like paper. Alarms shrieked. Atmosphere began venting. Vegeta stepped into the airlock, casually pushed the broken door back into its frame, and used a precise burst of ki to superheat the edges, welding it shut. The atmosphere venting stopped. He'd just performed emergency hull repair through sheer power application. Then he knocked on the inner airlock door. Politely. Inside the Ghost's common area, the crew stared at the airlock in collective disbelief. The being that had defeated Darth Vader had just casually fixed their hull breach and was now knocking like a dinner guest. Is he, waiting for permission to enter? Ezra Bridger, the teenage Jedi, asked incredulously. Kanan Jarrus, the older Jedi and the boy's master, had his hand on his lightsaber hilt but made no move to draw it. His force senses were screaming contradictions, immense danger mixed with no immediate hostile intent. Hera, it's your ship. Your call. The Twi'lek pilot took a deep breath, then hit the airlock release. Vegeta stepped into the common area, immediately assessing every person present with the cold efficiency of a warrior who'd survived in hostile territory since childhood. The Lazet, Garazeb Aurelios, based on the name patch on his vest, was the physically strongest at power level 12. The Mandalorian female, Sabine Wren, had that same proud bearing he'd seen in warriors from a dozen planets. The boy Ezra and his master Kanan both carried that force energy, though neither was particularly impressive. You wish to talk, Vegeta stated flatly, his arms crossing in his characteristic stance. Talk. You have 5 minutes before I lose interest. Hera stepped forward, maintaining eye contact despite the obvious power differential. Brave or stupid, Vegeta hadn't decided which. We're part of a larger organization dedicated to opposing the Galactic Empire. We saw what you did on Mustafar, saw you defeat Vader and cripple the Inquisitorius. That makes you either an incredibly powerful enemy of the Empire, or something else entirely. And you want to recruit me. Vegeta's tone made clear what he thought of that idea. You want the powerful warrior to fight your battles for you, to be the weapon that tips the scales in your rebellion's favor. He'd heard similar pitches before. The Jinyu Force had wanted him. Frisia had wanted him. Even the Z-Warriors had wanted him initially. Everyone wanted the Scion Prince's power, but few understood that Vegeta served no one but himself. No, Kanan interjected, his Jedi training making him sensitive to emotional undercurrents. We want to understand what you want. You're clearly not from this galaxy. You destroyed an Imperial installation and humiliated their greatest enforcer, but you didn't pursue. You're still here, just, observing. Why? Vegeta considered the question. These rebels were weak, yes, but they weren't idiots. The Jedi had sensed his hesitation, his lack of clear purpose. Truth was, Vegeta had entered this dimension seeking strong opponents, new challenges to push his limits. What he'd found instead was a galaxy where the strongest warriors were barely warm-up material. I came seeking worthy adversaries, Vegeta admitted. In my universe, I've fought gods and monsters, beings who could destroy planets with casual effort. I thought a different dimension might offer new challenges. His expression soured. Instead, I find a galaxy where the apex predator struggles against what would be considered a mid-level threat in my reality. Disappointing. You're looking for a fight, Sabine said, her Mandalorian directness cutting through the philosophical posturing. But not just any fight. You want an opponent who can actually challenge you. Precisely. Vegeta's eyes narrowed. Your empire, your rebellion, your force users, none of you operate at the level I need. You're all bound by limitations, restrictions, philosophical nonsense that weakens you. In my universe, power is refined through combat. You grow stronger by facing those stronger than you, by pushing past your limits, by nearly dying and coming back even more powerful. He uncrossed his arms, his frustration evident. But here, your strongest warrior relies on machinery to survive. Your force users split their power between light and dark instead of simply embracing strength. You're all so concerned with balance and tradition that you've forgotten what true power means. Zeb bristled at the insults but held his tongue. Ezra looked ready to argue but Kanan placed a restraining hand on the boy's shoulder. Hera, ever the diplomat, tried a different approach. You're right that we're not as powerful as you, she acknowledged. But we fight anyway. Not because we're strong enough to win alone, but because our strength comes from something else, from standing together, from believing in something larger than ourselves. She gestured to her crew. Each of us has lost something to the Empire. Family. Homeworld. Freedom. We fight not for personal glory, but for the galaxy's future. Vegeta snorted. Noble. Touching. Completely irrelevant. He turned toward the airlock, clearly done with this conversation. Your rebellion will fail. The Empire will crush you, or another threat will emerge that you're unprepared for. That's what happens to those who rely on ideals rather than power. Reality doesn't care about your beliefs, it only respects strength. Then why are you still here? Ezra blurted out, his teenage impulsiveness overriding caution. If we're all so weak and boring, why didn't you just leave? You could go anywhere, find any challenge. But you're still in this galaxy, still watching us. Why? The question hung in the air. Vegeta paused at the airlock door, his back to the crew. Why was he still here? He could sense stronger signatures across the galaxy, this emperor everyone feared, concentrations of dark side energy in various locations, even a few isolated force users who registered higher than Vader. But none of them felt like the challenge he was seeking. Because, Vegeta said slowly, working through his own reasoning even as he spoke, power without purpose is hollow. I learned that the hard way in my own universe. I spent years chasing strength for its own sake, proving my superiority, refusing to acknowledge anything beyond individual power. He glanced back at them. And it left me empty. Fighting without meaning is just violence. Combat without stakes is just exercise. Kanon's eyebrows rose. That sounds almost like wisdom. Don't mistake self-awareness for sentimentality, Jedi. Vegeta's tone hardened again. I'm not joining your rebellion. I don't care about your political struggles or your moral crusade against tyranny. But, he turned fully to face them again. This Emperor. Palpatine. He interests me. I've sensed his power signature, refined, concentrated, different from Vader's brute force approach. If anyone in this galaxy might offer a genuine challenge, it's him. You want to fight the Emperor? Hera's voice carried equal parts disbelief and horror. You have no idea what you're talking about. Palpatine destroyed the Jedi Order. He's corrupted the galaxy for decades. His mastery of the dark side is absolute. Good. Vegeta's smirk returned. Then he'll last longer than 3 minutes. Tell me everything you know about him, his abilities, his location, his weaknesses. Consider it payment for the conversation. The crew exchanged glances. They were being asked to provide intelligence on the Empire's leader to an outsider whose motives were entirely selfish. But if this being decided to confront Palpatine, if he actually had the power to challenge the Emperor? We'll tell you what we know, Kanon decided. But understand something, Palpatine isn't just powerful. He's cunning. Strategic. He won't face you in direct combat if he can avoid it. He'll manipulate circumstances, turn your strengths into weaknesses, corrupt what you value most. Then it will be an interesting fight. The Ghost's common area had transformed into an impromptu war room. Hera projected holographic star charts while Kanon outlined what the rebellion knew about Emperor Palpatine. Vegeta listened with the focused intensity of a warrior analyzing his next opponent, absorbing every detail about the Sith Lord who ruled the galaxy through fear and dark side manipulation. Palpatine was Supreme Chancellor before he became Emperor, Kanon explained, gesturing to historical holos showing a seemingly benign politician. He manipulated both sides of the Clone Wars for decades, orchestrating the Jedi Order's destruction through Order 66. When the Jedi fell, he declared himself Emperor, and the Republic became the Empire. Strategic patience, Vegeta observed. Decades of planning for a single moment of victory. Impressive discipline, if nothing else. He studied the holographic image of Palpatine, withered, ancient, radiating malevolence even through recorded footage. His power signature suggests extreme age. How old is he? No one knows for certain, Hera replied. Some records suggest he's over 100 years old, possibly much older. The dark side sustains him unnaturally. Life extension through energy manipulation. Vegeta nodded. Common among powerful beings. In my universe, those who master Ki can extend their lifespan significantly. Though eventually, biology catches up. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. But you said he's cunning. Explain. Ezra pulled up another holographic display, this one showing the Imperial Palace on Coruscant. He almost never leaves Coruscant anymore. Stays protected in the old Jedi Temple, converted it into his palace as an insult to the Jedi. Surrounded by royal guards, defensive systems, entire fleets in orbit. He lets Vader and the military do his dirty work while he consolidates power. A coward, then. Vegeta's disgust was evident. Hiding behind subordinates and fortifications instead of facing threats directly. Not a coward, Kanan corrected carefully. Strategic. Palpatine doesn't take unnecessary risks. He's survived this long by never exposing himself to danger unless he's already won. When he does act personally, it's overwhelming and decisive. The Jedi's expression darkened with painful memory. I've seen records of him fighting. Witnessed holos from the Jedi Temple security footage before it was all destroyed. He killed 4 Jedi Masters in seconds, masters who trained for decades, who were among the Order's finest duelists. They didn't stand a chance. For opponents simultaneously. That finally sparked genuine interest in Vegeta's expression. Coordinated attack or individual duels? Simultaneous. They came to arrest him for treason, and he cut them down before most could even properly engage. Only Mace Windu lasted more than a few seconds, and even he fell. Kanan pulled up fragmented holo footage, corrupted and incomplete, but showing flashes of an elderly man moving with impossible speed, crimson lightsaber blurring as Jedi died. The footage was mostly destroyed, but what remains shows mastery beyond anything the Jedi had seen. And that was 20 years ago. He's only grown stronger since. Vegeta studied the footage, analyzing combat patterns with the practiced eye of someone who'd fought the universe's deadliest warriors. Palpatine's movements were economical, precise, wasting no energy. Each strike found gaps in his opponent's defenses before they even knew the gaps existed. It was the efficiency of absolute mastery combined with precognitive awareness. Your force grants prediction, Vegeta stated. He sees his opponent's moves before they make them. Yes. All Force users have some precognitive ability, but Palpatine's is refined to an art form. He doesn't just see seconds ahead, he sees entire scenarios play out, calculates probabilities, chooses the timeline where he wins. Kanan's frustration was evident. That's why the Jedi fell. He saw their extinction coming and guided events to make it inevitable. Fighting him isn't just about power, it's about fighting someone who's already seen how the battle ends. Interesting. Vegeta's smirk suggested he found the challenge appealing rather than daunting. So he predicts the future. Frisia could analyze combat patterns at superhuman speeds. Cell could adapt to any fighting style in real time. Majin Buu could regenerate from vapor. Every powerful opponent has advantages beyond raw strength. Precognition is just another obstacle to overcome. You don't understand, Ezra interjected, his youth making him more blunt. The Force isn't just about seeing the future. It's about shaping it. Palpatine doesn't just predict what'll happen, he makes things happen. He influenced the galaxy for decades, turning the Clone Wars into a trap that destroyed the Jedi. He corrupted Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One himself, into Darth Vader. He's played galactic chess using entire civilizations as pieces. Then I'll break the board. Vegeta stood abruptly, his patience for theory exhausted. Enough talk. You've told me he's powerful, strategic, patient, and precognitive. You've told me he hides on Coruscant surrounded by defenses. You've told me he's ancient and cunning. The Scion Prince's eyes gleamed with anticipation. What you've actually told me is that he's never faced an opponent from outside his predictive framework. Someone whose power doesn't follow this galaxy's rules. Someone he can't see coming. You're going to challenge him directly? Hera's tactical mind immediately saw the problems. The moment you enter Coruscant's airspace, every defense system, every Star Destroyer, every TIE fighter squadron will engage. You'd be fighting through the most heavily fortified planet in the galaxy just to reach him. Good. Vegeta walked to the Ghost's viewport, staring out at the stars beyond Mustafar. I've been bored since I arrived. Let the Empire throw everything at me. Let them demonstrate what their precious military power can actually accomplish. And when I'm standing in front of Palpatine's throne, when his predictions and strategies have failed, when he realizes that all his dark side mastery means nothing against true power, the Scion Prince's aura flickered briefly, golden energy crackling around his form. Then we'll see if this galaxy has any real warriors, or just pretenders playing at strength. Before any of the crew could respond, alarms blared throughout the Ghost. Sabine rushed to the sensor console, her Mandalorian training making her the ship's tactical officer. Imperial fleet movement. 3 more Star Destroyers just exited hyperspace. And they're deploying something, wait. Her fingers flew across the controls, magnifying the sensor readout. That's not standard Imperial deployment. Those ships are carrying heavy siege equipment. Capital ship-grade weapons platforms. Zeb peered over her shoulder. They're setting up orbital bombardment coordinates. But for what? Mustafar's already a lava planet. What are they planning to bomb? Vegeta's scouter activated, scanning the incoming vessels. His expression shifted from boredom to interest. They're targeting me, obviously. Your Emperor has decided that direct confrontation is too risky, so he's attempting orbital annihilation. Predictable, but it demonstrates proper threat assessment. He turned to Hera. You should leave. This is about to become an active combat zone. What are you going to do? Kanan asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. What I always do. Vegeta moved to the airlock he'd entered through. Show them that military tactics and overwhelming firepower mean nothing when your opponent operates at a different magnitude of power. He paused at the door, glancing back at the rebellion crew. Tell your leaders what you witnessed here. Tell them that the Empire's hold on this galaxy is more fragile than they think. And tell them that when I'm done demonstrating the futility of Palpatine's conventional warfare, I'll be coming to Coruscant to face him directly. Wait, Ezra called out. Why are you telling us this? If you don't care about the rebellion, why give us hope? Vegeta's expression was unreadable. Because in my universe, I learned something after years of solitary combat. Fighting alone against insurmountable odds is satisfying, but meaningless. The Z-Warriors taught me that even the strongest warrior is part of a larger picture. I don't join your rebellion. I don't adopt your cause. But, he seemed to struggle with the admission. When I destroy the Empire's power structure, someone will need to fill the vacuum. Better organized resistance fighters than random warlords and chaos. Before anyone could respond, Vegeta ripped open the airlock door again, stepped into vacuum, and launched himself toward the Imperial fleet with explosive force. The Ghost rocked from the kinetic backwash, and by the time the crew stabilized their sensors, the Scion Prince was already halfway to the nearest Star Destroyer. Did he just? Ezra stared in disbelief. Did he just basically say he's going to overthrow the Empire for us? Not for us, Kanan corrected, watching the golden streak of energy cross the void toward the Imperial ships. For himself. But the result might be the same. He turned to Hera. Get us out of here. We need to report this to command. Mon Mothma needs to know that the galaxy's power dynamic is about to shift dramatically. Hera's hands moved across the controls, preparing the Ghost for immediate departure. But her eyes remained fixed on the viewport, watching as Vegeta approached the Imperial fleet alone. We're about to witness either the most spectacular victory or the most catastrophic defeat in galactic history. My money's on victory, Sabine said, her tactical mind already calculating the implications. That being just fought Darth Vader in close combat and walked away. Orbital bombardment uses distance and firepower to compensate for individual weakness. But if he can survive in hard vacuum and move at those speeds, she pulled up trajectory calculations. The fleet won't be able to track him properly. It'll be like trying to shoot a single starfighter with Star Destroyer turbolasers, except this starfighter punches back. Above Mustafar, the Imperial fleet had completed its deployment. 6 Star Destroyers in orbital formation, weapons platforms positioned for overlapping fields of fire, TIE fighter squadrons forming defensive screens. Aboard the command ship, Admiral Yuller reviewed the battle plan personally transmitted from Emperor Palpatine himself. The orders were clear: eliminate the target designated as Vegeta through overwhelming sustained firepower. Estimated required output, equivalent to base Delta Zero protocols, planetary sterilization levels of destructive power. All ships were authorized to fire continuously until target was confirmed vaporized or the fleet's power reserves were depleted. All ships, this is Admiral Yuller, he transmitted across the fleet command channel. Target acquired. Weapons free. Commence bombardment on my mark. He watched the tactical display as the golden energy signature approached at speeds that made his sensor officers question their equipment. Mark. Every turbolaser on 6 Star Destroyers fired simultaneously. Emerald lances of plasma energy, each bolt carrying enough destructive force to level a city block, converged on a single point in space. The weapons platforms added their firepower, capital-grade particle beams and ion cannons designed to disable entire ships. The combined firepower could have reduced a small moon to asteroids. The barrage struck Vegeta directly, engulfing him in an inferno of energy that lit up the void like a newborn star. The ghost sensors overloaded from the energy output. Every ship in the system registered the discharge. On Coruscant, 3,000 light-years away, Palpatine felt the disturbance through the Force. The bombardment continued for 10 seconds. 20. 30. Admiral Yuller held formation, watching the energy readings, waiting for confirmation that nothing could survive that level of sustained firepower. When the energy dispersed and sensors cleared, Vegeta was still there. Floating in the exact same position, arms crossed, expression conveying absolute boredom. His clothing wasn't even singed. His aura had simply absorbed the bombardment like a barrier shield, dissipating the energy before it could touch him. Disappointing, Vegeta's voice transmitted across all Imperial frequencies, his scouter hacking their communications with contemptuous ease. I expected more from a galactic empire. This is your orbital superiority. This is the power that keeps entire star systems in line. He uncrossed his arms, pointing one hand toward the nearest Star Destroyer. Let me show you what real firepower looks like. A sphere of blue-white energy formed at Vegeta's fingertip, small, compact, containing more concentrated power than the entire fleet had just fired combined. Final flash. The energy beam that erupted from Vegeta's hands was wider than a Star Destroyer was long. It crossed the distance between him and the Imperial fleet in less than a second, pure key energy unleashed with enough force to crack planets. The first Star Destroyer simply ceased to exist, vaporized before its shields could even register the attack. The second and third ships tried to maneuver, but the beam tracked them through space, carving through their hulls like a plasma torch through tissue paper. The remaining 3 Star Destroyers opened fire again, desperation overriding tactics. TIE fighter squadrons swarmed toward Vegeta, hundreds of small craft trying to overwhelm him through numbers. The weapons platforms unleashed everything: missiles, torpedoes, experimental weapons that had never been field-tested. Vegeta moved. He became a golden blur, moving through the Imperial forces like a predator through prey. Each movement left destroyed TIE fighters in his wake, not from direct contact, but from the sheer kinetic force of his passage. The fighter craft simply tore apart from atmospheric pressure that shouldn't exist in vacuum but did anyway when Vegeta moved. He reached the 4th Star Destroyer, placed both palms against its hull, and unleashed a point-blank key blast that traveled through the entire length of the ship, detonating its reactor from inside. The explosion consumed the Star Destroyer and damaged the 5th ship nearby. Admiral Euler, aboard the sixth and final vessel, watched his fleet die in minutes and made the only logical decision left to him. All remaining ships, retreat. Retreat to hyperspace immediately. But Vegeta had decided the demonstration needed a final exclamation point. He appeared directly in front of the fleeing Star Destroyer's bridge, visible through the forward viewport to every officer present. His hands came together, forming his signature attack position. Gallic gun. Fire. The purple energy wave consumed the Star Destroyer's forward section, carving through the ship lengthwise. The Admiral's last thought before death was that the Emperor had underestimated this threat catastrophically. Then there was only light, and heat, and nothing. The last Imperial ship managed to jump to hyperspace damaged but functional, carrying with it sensor logs and terrified survivors who would spread the truth. The Empire's vaunted military might meant nothing against the Scion Prince. Vegeta floated amid the debris field of destroyed Star Destroyers, watching the final ship escape. He'd let it go deliberately. Someone needed to report this to Palpatine. Someone needed to deliver the message that conventional warfare was futile. His scouter pinged, the ghost was already leaving the system, the rebellion crew having witnessed enough. Good. They would spread the word as well. By tomorrow, every faction in the galaxy would know that a power beyond the Force had arrived, and the old order was crumbling. Coruscant, Vegeta said to himself, staring in the direction of the core worlds. Time to meet this Emperor face to face. Let's see if his mastery is genuine or just another fraud hiding behind reputation. The Scion Prince's aura flared golden, and he launched himself into the void toward the galaxy's capital, leaving behind only destruction and the shattered remnants of Imperial arrogance. The hyperspace journey to Coruscant would take days for conventional ships, even with the fastest drives. Vegeta covered the distance in hours, his ki-propelled flight through real space operating on principles that had nothing to do with hyperdrive technology. He moved between star systems like a comet, golden aura trailing behind him, his scouter calculating trajectories and adjusting course as needed. Along the way, he passed through inhabited systems, industrial worlds where workers stopped mid-shift to stare at the impossible golden streak crossing their sky, agricultural planets where farmers witnessed what they thought was a new star racing across the heavens, military outposts where Imperial sensors registered an anomaly moving at speeds that violated every known law of physics. By the time Vegeta reached the Coruscant system, the entire galaxy knew he was coming. The galactic capital was a testament to millennia of civilization, an entire planet covered in cityscape, trillions of beings living in vertical metropolises that stretched kilometers into the atmosphere and deep into the planetary crust. Coruscant was the beating heart of the Empire, the center of political power, the location of the Imperial Palace, and the most heavily defended world in known space. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet in concentric rings. Golan 3 defense platforms bristled with weapons that could engage entire fleets. Hunter-killer satellites tracked thousands of targets simultaneously. And positioned in geosynchronous orbit above the Imperial Palace itself hung 5 super Star Destroyers, massive vessels that dwarfed regular Star Destroyers, each one capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag. The defense grid detected Vegeta the moment he entered the system. Alarms cascaded through Imperial Command. Grand Moff Tarkin himself oversaw the planetary defense from the command citadel, his gaunt face illuminated by tactical displays showing the golden energy signature approaching at impossible velocity. All defensive stations, weapons free, Tarkin commanded with icy calm. Target the anomaly. Destroy it before it reaches orbital space. He had reviewed the sensor logs from Mustafar, seen the footage of 6 Star Destroyers reduced to debris. Tarkin was many things, ambitious, ruthless, strategic, but he was not a fool. This being could not be allowed to reach Coruscant's surface. The orbital platforms opened fire first. Turbolaser batteries that could engage capital ships at extreme range focused their barrage on a single target no larger than a human. Heavy ion cannons designed to disable Star Destroyers lanced coherent particle streams across the void. Concussion missiles launched in swarms, each one guided by tracking systems sophisticated enough to hit starfighters in evasive maneuvers. Vegeta didn't slow down. He flew straight into the defensive fire, his ki aura deflecting or absorbing every strike. Turbolaser bolts that would have vaporized armored vehicles splashed harmlessly against his barrier. Ion cannon streams designed to overwhelm shield generators and disable ship systems simply dissipated upon contact with energy that operated on fundamentally different principles. Missiles that got too close detonated prematurely when their targeting systems failed trying to track something moving faster than their processors could calculate. The Scion Prince crossed the orbital defense perimeter in seconds, leaving behind weapons platforms firing at empty space and confusion spreading through Imperial Command. "Target has breached the orbital line," a tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with stress. "Defensive platforms ineffective. Redirecting super-star destroyers to intercept." Tarkin watched the golden signature descend toward Coruscant's atmosphere, his mind calculating probabilities and tactics with the cold efficiency that had made him one of the Empire's most effective leaders. The Emperor had transmitted explicit orders: delay the target, wear it down, force it to expend energy before it reached the palace. Palpatine was preparing something, what exactly, Tarkin didn't know, but the Emperor's confidence suggested he had a plan beyond conventional military engagement. "Deploy all available TIE squadrons," Tarkin commanded. "I want continuous waves engaging the target from now until it reaches the surface. Bombers, interceptors, defenders, throw everything at it. Even if they can't destroy it, they can slow it down." The super-star destroyers launched their fighter complements. Over 5,000 TIE fighters, bombers, and interceptors swarmed into Coruscant's upper atmosphere, forming attack formations that blotted out sections of sky. It was the largest single fighter deployment in Imperial history, and it was directed at one being. Vegeta saw them coming, his scouter counted every fighter, calculated their attack vectors, assessed their threat level, and concluded they were irrelevant. But the sheer number was almost impressive by this galaxy's standards. At least they were trying. The first wave of TIE interceptors opened fire with synchronized precision, their laser cannons creating a web of emerald energy that would have shredded any ship. Vegeta flew through the barrage without adjusting his trajectory, the laser fire simply unable to penetrate his aura. The interceptors tried to adapt, switching to kamikaze tactics, attempting to physically ram the target. Vegeta raised one hand casually, and a kinetic shockwave exploded outward from his position. 50 TIE interceptors simply disintegrated, their frames unable to withstand the pressure wave. The Scion Prince continued his descent, swatting aside fighter craft like insects, his expression one of growing irritation rather than effort. "This is pathetic," Vegeta muttered as another squadron of TIE bombers tried dropping their payloads directly on his position. The thermal detonators and proton bombs detonated in sequence, creating a chain reaction of explosions that lit up Coruscant's sky. When the smoke cleared, Vegeta was unchanged, his clothing not even singed. Does this galaxy have any warriors at all, or just technicians hiding behind machines? He accelerated, breaking through the sound barrier multiple times, creating sonic booms that shattered windows across several city sectors. The Imperial Palace grew larger in his vision, the converted Jedi Temple, dark and foreboding, radiating dark side energy that Vegeta could sense even through his ki detection. That was where Palpatine waited. In the throne room at the palace's peak, Emperor Palpatine sat motionless on his throne, his yellow eyes closed, his consciousness spread across light years through the Force. He felt every death in the orbital battle, every destroyed fighter, every moment of terror from pilots facing something beyond their comprehension. And he felt Vegeta approaching, felt the impossible power that shouldn't exist, felt the opportunity that had literally fallen into his lap. "Master?" Darth Vader stood beside the throne, his armor rebuilt and reinforced, his presence in the Force cold and focused despite the defeat he'd suffered days prior. "He's destroyed over 1,000 fighters. The defense grid is ineffective. He'll reach the palace in minutes." "Let him come," Palpatine said softly, his eyes still closed. "Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen." His withered hands moved in subtle patterns, dark side energy responding to his will, weaving preparations that Vegeta couldn't sense through normal means. This Scion Prince seeks challenge, seeks meaning through combat. We shall give him exactly what he desires. And in doing so, we shall demonstrate why the dark side has ruled this galaxy for millennia. You intend to fight him yourself? Even through his vocoder, Vader's surprise was evident. I intend to show him the futility of raw power untempered by wisdom. Palpatine's eyes opened, glowing yellow in the throne room's darkness. He believes strength is sufficient. That personal power transcends strategy, patience, manipulation. He has never encountered someone who wields the Force as I do, not as a weapon, but as an extension of will itself. The Emperor stood slowly, his ancient frame moving with surprising grace. You will observe, Lord Vader. Watch how true mastery defeats brute force. Perhaps you will learn something. Royal guards moved to flank the Emperor, their crimson armor gleaming, their force pikes held ready. Palpatine gestured dismissively. Stand aside. This confrontation requires no assistance. The guards obeyed instantly, moving to the throne room's perimeter. Palpatine descended from his dais, standing in the center of the vast chamber, his hands clasped within his sleeves. He appeared fragile, ancient, harmless, exactly the image he'd cultivated throughout his political career. But the Force churned around him like a maelstrom, dark side energy concentrated to levels that made the air itself feel heavy. Vegeta crashed through the throne room's reinforced ceiling like a meteor. Durasteel and stone shattered from the impact, debris raining down across the polished floor. The Scion Prince landed in a crouch, his golden Super Saiyan aura flaring dramatically, his teal eyes scanning the chamber with predatory focus. He found Palpatine standing calmly amid the destruction, untouched by falling debris, his expression one of mild curiosity rather than fear. Darth Vader stood to one side, his presence familiar from their earlier encounter. The royal guards maintained their positions, unmoving despite the catastrophic entrance. Emperor Palpatine, I presume, Vegeta said, rising to his full height. His power signature filled the throne room like physical pressure, making normal humans struggle to breathe. I've destroyed your fleets, killed your inquisitors, humiliated your enforcer, and carved through your defenses like they were made of paper. And you're just standing there, calm as if nothing has happened. Either you're a fool, or you actually believe you can challenge me. Palpatine smiled, a thin, predatory expression that held no warmth. Welcome to Coruscant, Prince Vegeta. I have been expecting you. His voice was soft, almost grandfatherly, completely at odds with the dark side energy radiating from him. You have made quite the entrance to our galaxy. Impressive displays of power. Destruction wrought with casual ease. You wish to demonstrate your superiority, to prove that you are Apex, yes? I don't need to prove anything, Vegeta corrected. I am superior. Your strongest warrior fell in minutes. Your military might is a joke. The only question remaining is whether you, personally, are worth the trip to this dimension, or if I've wasted my time entirely. Worth your time. Palpatine's smile widened, revealing teeth yellowed with age. An interesting perspective. You view this galaxy as a resource to be evaluated, a training ground to test yourself against. You are accustomed to being the strongest, the apex predator, the one who stands above all others. He began walking slowly toward Vegeta, his gait that of an elderly man, his presence in the Force growing with each step. But you have made a fundamental error, young prince. You have confused raw power with true strength. You have mistaken the ability to destroy with the wisdom to rule. Vegeta's aura flared brighter. More philosophy. Everyone in this galaxy hides behind words when they lack actual power. Vader spoke of the dark side. Your rebels spoke of hope and unity. And now you speak of wisdom and ruling. But I've learned that all the philosophy in the universe means nothing when your opponent can simply obliterate you before you finish your sermon. Demonstrate, then. Palpatine stopped 5 meters from Vegeta, his arms spreading wide in invitation. Strike me down. Use your overwhelming power. Show me why a Scion Prince is superior to a Sith Lord who has mastered the Force over nearly a century of life. His yellow eyes gleamed with terrible certainty. I will not defend myself. I will not move. One attack, Prince Vegeta. Prove that strength alone is sufficient. It was clearly a trap. Vegeta's tactical mind, honed through countless battles against opponents who specialized in deception, recognized the setup immediately. No one confident in their power offered themselves as an open target without reason. Palpatine was either bluffing, counting on Vegeta's caution to prevent the attack, or he genuinely had a defense that rendered physical assault meaningless. Either way, Vegeta's pride wouldn't allow him to decline. You'll regret that invitation, Vegeta said coldly. His aura exploded outward, power rising to levels that cracked the throne room floor, that shattered windows throughout the palace, that registered on sensors across multiple star systems. This was beyond what he'd used against Vader, beyond what he'd needed for the Inquisitors or the fleet. This was Vegeta demonstrating why Scions were the universe's warrior race. His right fist drew back, ki concentrating around his hand until it glowed like a miniature sun. The attack would be simple, a straight punch backed by enough force to shatter mountains, delivered at speeds that made light seem slow. No fancy technique. No energy blast. Just pure kinetic devastation. Vegeta struck. His fist hit Palpatine directly in the chest, all that concentrated power focused on a point smaller than a coin. The impact created a shockwave that blew out every window in the palace, that flattened the royal guards against the walls, that made Darth Vader's armor systems scream warnings as kinetic force washed over him. When the dust settled, Palpatine stood exactly where he'd been. Unharmed. Not even bruised. His robes weren't even disturbed. Vegeta's fist was still pressed against the Emperor's chest, his power still radiating outward, his confusion momentarily overriding his tactical awareness. Impossible. He'd hit this man with enough force to destroy a planet's surface. Even if Palpatine had some kind of barrier, some force shield, the kinetic transfer alone should have pulverized internal organs. Palpatine's smile never wavered. Impressive power, young prince. Truly remarkable. His hand moved with deceptive slowness, gripping Vegeta's extended wrist. But you still don't understand. The Force is not about blocking attacks or absorbing damage. The Force is about altering reality itself. Dark side energy erupted from Palpatine's hand, pouring into Vegeta through the contact point. Not Force lightning, something deeper, more insidious. It was corruption made manifest, the dark side's essence weaponized, attempting to invade Vegeta's very life force and turn it against him. For the first time since entering this galaxy, Vegeta felt pain. The dark side energy that poured from Palpatine's hand was unlike anything Vegeta had encountered in his universe. It wasn't simply destructive force or concentrated energy, it was corruption incarnate, a weaponized philosophy that sought to twist and pervert life itself. The energy invaded through the contact point, attempting to burrow into Vegeta's ki network, to turn his own power against him from within. Vegeta's Super Saiyan aura flickered, destabilized by the intrusion. His muscles spasmed involuntarily as dark side corruption tried to override his nervous system. For a brief moment, less than a second, genuine pain registered across his features. Not the satisfying pain of physical combat, but something worse. The sensation of his own energy being manipulated by foreign will. Then the Scion Prince's survival instincts, honed through decades of life-or-death battles, kicked in with explosive force. Vegeta's free hand shot forward, gripping Palpatine's throat with crushing strength even as he simultaneously detonated his ki aura outward in an omnidirectional shockwave. The combined attack launched both combatants apart, Vegeta skidding backward across the throne room floor, Palpatine tumbling through the air before catching himself with force levitation. The Emperor straightened his robes, his expression shifting from confident superiority to genuine interest. For the first time in decades, someone had physically touched him with hostile intent and survived long enough to counterattack. Fascinating. You purged my influence through sheer energy output. Raw power used as both weapon and defense simultaneously. Palpatine's yellow eyes gleamed with terrible fascination. You are adapting. Learning. Precisely what makes you dangerous. Vegeta stood straight, his Super Saiyan aura stabilizing. His right arm, the one Palpatine had gripped, showed dark veins beneath the skin, corruption that hadn't been fully purged. But even as he watched, his key network was systematically burning out the contamination, his Saiyan biology's natural resilience combined with conscious energy manipulation. Within seconds, the dark veins faded. You actually hurt me, Vegeta admitted, flexing his hand. Not much. Not enough to matter. But you're the first being in this galaxy who's done more than inconvenience me. His smirk returned, predatory and anticipatory. Good. I was starting to think this trip was a complete waste. Hurt you, yes. But not defeated you. Palpatine raised both hands, and the throne room itself responded to his will. Lord Vader. Assist me. Darth Vader, who had been observing from the perimeter, moved instantly. His lightsaber ignited as he launched himself at Vegeta with force-enhanced speed, his rebuilt armor functioning optimally, his tactical mind already calculating how to engage an opponent who had defeated him days prior. But Vader wasn't attacking alone. Palpatine's hands erupted with force lightning, not the measured punishment he'd used before, but the full fury of dark side mastery accumulated over a century. Purple-white electricity arced across the throne room, striking Vegeta from multiple angles as Palpatine manipulated its trajectory through telekinetic control. Vegeta's instinct was to tank the attack as he'd done before. But some combat intuition warned him that this wasn't the same technique Vader had used. Where Vader's force lightning had been a weapon, Palpatine's was a living thing, seeking, adaptive, trying to find gaps in Vegeta's ki aura the way water finds cracks in stone. The Saiyan Prince went on the defensive for the first time since arriving in this galaxy. He dodged, moving at speeds that left afterimages, his enhanced reflexes letting him stay microseconds ahead of the lightning streams. Vader's lightsaber came in from 3 different angles simultaneously, that same force-assisted technique that created impossible attack geometry. Vegeta blocked 2 strikes with his forearms, his ki aura preventing the plasma blade from cutting him, but the third slash caught his shoulder guard, slicing through the armor's outer layer. First blood. Barely a scratch, but it was there. Coordination, Vegeta observed, impressed despite himself. He kicked Vader squarely in the chest, launching the Dark Lord through 3 support columns, then spun to face Palpatine. You fight like a true warrior after all. Using tactics, terrain, and subordinates instead of relying solely on personal power. Frieza did the same, never fought alone if he could help it. I am Sith, Palpatine replied, his lightning streams intensifying. We understand that power is not merely personal strength but the ability to bend all resources to our will. The Force, the Empire, even other Force users, all are tools to be wielded by one with sufficient mastery. His hands moved in complex patterns, and the Force responded with devastating creativity. The throne room's structural supports began collapsing, not from battle damage but from Palpatine deliberately undermining them through molecular-level telekinesis. The massive durasteel and stone columns that held up the palace's upper levels groaned and fractured. Vegeta found himself having to split his attention between defending against attacks and preventing thousands of tons of architecture from crushing him. Not that the weight would kill him, but it would slow him down, create openings, force him to expend energy on survival rather than offense. Vader returned to the battle, blood seeping through cracks in his rebuilt armor but his determination unshaken. The Dark Lord pulled on the Force with both hands, using telekinesis to hurl debris, broken columns, even pieces of the throne itself at Vegeta in a continuous barrage. Each piece was infused with dark side energy, making them more than simple projectiles. They carried corruption, attempting to contaminate whatever they touched. Vegeta was forced to destroy incoming debris with precision ki blasts rather than simply tanking the impacts. Each small blast was efficient, controlled, but they added up. This was what Palpatine wanted, a war of attrition. Force the scion to expend energy constantly, wear him down through 1,000 small expenditures rather than one direct confrontation. You're stalling, Vegeta accused, vaporizing another wave of corrupted debris. Drawing this out, making me burn energy. Smart. Cowardly, but smart. He dodged another lightning stream, his boots carving trenches in the floor from the force of his movements. But you're making an incorrect assumption, Emperor. You think I have limits. You think eventually I'll tire, weaken, become vulnerable. Vegeta's aura exploded outward again, this time with enough force to blast away all the debris, clear the throne room of Palpatine's environmental traps, and create momentary space. I am a scion. We don't have limits, we have thresholds. And every time we break through one, we become stronger. Your strategy isn't weakening me, old man. It's training me. And it was true. Vegeta could feel it, that familiar sensation of adaptation, of his body and ki responding to stress by evolving. Palpatine's dark side corruption was becoming easier to resist with each exposure. Vader's attack patterns were becoming predictable. The Force lightning streams were being absorbed more efficiently by his aura. He was learning this galaxy's unique challenges and overcoming them in real time. Palpatine sensed it too, his precognitive awareness showing him futures where this battle's outcome shifted dramatically. The Sith Lord's expression hardened with decision. Lord Vader, withdraw. Vader hesitated only a microsecond before obeying, using the Force to propel himself to the throne room's perimeter. He understood immediately, the Emperor was about to use techniques that would be as dangerous to allies as to enemies. Palpatine raised both hands toward the throne room's ceiling, toward the sky beyond, and he pulled. The dark side of the Force answered its master's call across thousands of kilometers. Every dark side nexus on Coruscant, ancient Sith shrines hidden in the planetary crust, corrupted locations where atrocities had been committed, the temple itself built on Sith foundations, all of it responded. Dark energy converged on the Imperial Palace, drawn by Palpatine's will, concentrated by mastery that represented the culmination of Sith philosophy refined over millennia. The sky above Coruscant darkened as if night had fallen instantly. Force-sensitive beings across the planet collapsed, overwhelmed by the sudden surge of dark side presence. In the Jedi Temple ruins beneath the palace, ancient holocrons shattered from the power being channeled through them. Palpatine's form began to change, his withered frame infused with stolen life energy, his yellow eyes blazing like suns. You want to see true power, Scion Prince? You wish to face someone who has transcended mortal limitations. His voice carried harmonics that shouldn't be possible from human vocal cords. Then witness what the dark side offers to those with the will to seize it. The Emperor's lightning returned, but transformed. No longer simple electricity, it was now pure dark side essence given destructive form. The streams didn't just burn, they aged, corrupted, deconstructed matter at the molecular level. Where they struck the floor, stone didn't melt, it simply ceased to exist, replaced by yawning voids of absolute darkness. Vegeta's ki aura strained against this new assault. The lightning found purchase, burrowing through his defenses, and for the first time, he felt genuine damage. His skin blistered where the energy made contact. His muscles spasmed beyond his control. Pain, real, significant pain, registered throughout his nervous system. There it is, Palpatine hissed, advancing slowly, his lightning intensifying. The limitations of flesh. You are powerful, yes. Perhaps the most naturally powerful being I have encountered. But you are still biological. Still mortal. Still subject to entropy and decay. The dark side is eternal. It does not tire. It does not weaken. It simply is, and it consumes all who stand against it. Vegeta dropped to one knee, his Super Saiyan aura flickering dangerously. The lightning was doing more than physical damage. It was draining his ki, forcing him to burn energy simply to resist being unmade at the cellular level. If he were anyone else, any normal warrior from his universe, this would be the end. Piccolo would have been overwhelmed. Gohan might have lasted longer but would have fallen eventually. But Vegeta was not anyone else. He was the Saiyan Prince. And Saiyans had one advantage that transcended technique, wisdom, or even raw power. They broke their limits when pushed beyond them. "You talk too much," Vegeta growled through gritted teeth. His power level, which had been fluctuating downward under the assault, suddenly stabilized. Then began rising. "All you Force users, Jedi and Sith alike, you rely on this mystical energy, this external power source that you channel and control. You've never had to cultivate power from within. Never had to forge your own strength through pain and adversity." His aura reignited, burning brighter than before. The golden energy began pushing back against Palpatine's lightning, not merely resisting but actively consuming the dark side corruption. "I was born weak. Power level barely above human standards. But I trained. I fought. I died and came back stronger. I broke through Super Saiyan through sheer determination." Vegeta stood, forcing himself upright through Palpatine's assault, his muscles screaming, his ki network burning, but his will absolutely unbreakable. "And now you're going to help me break through another threshold. So thank you, Emperor. Thank you for pushing me hard enough that I have to evolve." The Saiyan Prince's aura exploded with such force that it momentarily disrupted Palpatine's lightning. His power level skyrocketed, surging past anything he'd demonstrated before, approaching the heights he'd reached in his home universe when fighting gods. The golden glow intensified, electricity crackling through his aura, not Force lightning, but his own ki taking on electrical properties from the sheer energy output. "This is Ascended Super Saiyan," Vegeta announced, his voice carrying harmonics similar to Palpatine's dark side-infused speech but generated through completely different means. "A level beyond what I showed Vader. A form I haven't needed since fighting Perfect Cell. But you've earned it, old man. You've actually earned it." The muscular definition of Vegeta's transformed state increased, his golden aura solidifying into something more tangible than before. The power radiating from him made the Force itself recoil, creating a dead zone around him where Palpatine's telekinetic control simply stopped functioning. For the first time in the battle, fear flickered across the Emperor's ancient face. Vegeta vanished from sight, moving faster than even Sith precognition could track, and reappeared directly in front of Palpatine. His fist, no longer simply backed by strength but by evolved power that dwarfed what he'd used before, drove into the Emperor's stomach. Palpatine's eyes widened in shock as the blow connected. No Force barrier. No reality manipulation. Just overwhelming kinetic force delivered by someone who had literally broken their own biological limitations mid-battle. The Emperor was launched backward through the throne room, through the palace wall beyond, through 3 city blocks of Coruscant architecture before finally crashing into a traffic pylon hard enough to embed himself in Durasteel. Darth Vader could only watch from the throne room as the being his master had attempted to manipulate and control demonstrated why evolution through combat was superior to millennia of accumulated technique. Vegeta stood in the crater where Palpatine had been, his ascended Super Saiyan aura burning like a golden star. "Round 2, Emperor. Let's see how your wisdom holds up now." Emperor Palpatine extracted himself from the traffic pylon, his robes torn, his ancient body visibly damaged for the first time in decades. Blood, actual red blood, dripped from his mouth. Bones had cracked. Internal organs were bruised. The physical shell he'd maintained through dark side alchemy and stolen life force had taken damage that should have been impossible for someone of his mastery. Around them, Coruscant citizens fled in panic. Speeders crashed as drivers abandoned their vehicles. Pedestrians on nearby platforms scattered like leaves before a storm. Imperial forces were evacuating entire city sectors, recognizing that the battle between these two beings had escalated beyond anything conventional forces could survive near. "Remarkable," Palpatine rasped, wiping blood from his lips with a withered hand. "You actually evolved. Mid-combat. Your biology responded to mortal threat by transcending its previous limitations." He straightened slowly, dark side energy flooding his damaged frame, accelerating healing, reinforcing failing systems. In a century of life, studying every Force tradition, mastering techniques lost for millennia, I have never encountered a species with such adaptive capacity. We're called Scions for a reason, Vegeta replied, descending slowly from the shattered throne room toward the Emperor's position. His ascended Super Saiyan form radiated power that distorted the air itself, made nearby electronics malfunction, caused Force-sensitive beings across the planet to experience visions of golden fire consuming everything. We were bred for combat. Engineered through generations of warfare to be the universe's ultimate warriors. Every battle makes us stronger. Every near-death experience pushes us past our limits. You can't outlast us, Emperor. You can only lose quickly or slowly. Palpatine's expression shifted from pain to something far more dangerous, genuine, unrestrained hatred. Then I choose a third option, Prince Vegeta. If I cannot corrupt you, cannot outlast you, cannot defeat you through conventional means, his hands spread wide, and the dark side responded with apocalyptic intensity. I will take you with me into oblivion. The Sith Lord's body began to deteriorate, his physical form literally burning away as he channeled more dark side energy than flesh could possibly contain. But this wasn't suicide, it was sacrifice. Palpatine was destroying his own body to create something far more dangerous, a Force storm. The technique was ancient Sith sorcery, forbidden even among dark side users for its catastrophic unpredictability. By sacrificing massive amounts of life energy and dark side power, a Sith could tear holes in space-time itself, creating hyperspace wormholes that consumed everything nearby. Palpatine had used it once before, decades ago, destroying an entire rebel fleet by opening a wormhole directly beneath them. But that had been a controlled demonstration using careful preparation and ritual. This was desperation, raw power thrown with suicidal abandon. Reality itself began to crack. The air above Coruscant's cityscape split open, revealing swirling vortexes of hyperspace energy. Not one wormhole, dozens, each one large enough to swallow city blocks. Gravitational forces went insane as space-time warped, pulling speeders, buildings, atmospheric processors, anything not anchored down, into the yawning rifts. If you are truly as powerful as you claim, Palpatine screamed over the howling winds being generated by collapsing space-time, then save them. Save this planet. Show me that your strength has meaning beyond personal glory. It was a trap. An elegant, vicious trap. Vegeta had two choices: stop the Force storm and potentially let Palpatine escape or recover, or press his attack and let millions die as Coruscant's infrastructure collapsed into hyperspace. The Emperor was betting that despite all his power and pride, the Scion Prince retained enough conscience to prioritize innocent lives over personal victory. Palpatine had studied the reports carefully. Vegeta had let the Grand Inquisitor live to deliver a message. He'd allowed the Ghost crew to leave unmolested. He'd even let the final Star Destroyer escape to spread word of his power. Despite his ruthlessness, despite his pride, Vegeta had shown patterns that suggested he distinguished between worthy opponents and helpless civilians. Darth Vader, who had managed to descend from the ruined throne room, recognized his master's strategy immediately. Brilliant, he murmured through his vocoder, watching as more wormholes opened across the cityscape. Force the warrior to choose between victory and morality. Either he loses the battle or loses his conscience. Either outcome diminishes him. Vegeta floated above the chaos, his ascended Super Saiyan aura burning bright, his expression calculating. Thousands of beings were about to die. Buildings were collapsing into dimensional rifts. Emergency services were overwhelmed. The capital of the Galactic Empire was minutes away from catastrophic infrastructure failure. And Palpatine was using the chaos as cover, his body already beginning to regenerate, dark side energy flowing back into him from the nexuses scattered across Coruscant. If Vegeta stopped to contain the Force storm, the Emperor would escape, recover, prepare new strategies. This battle would become a war of attrition lasting months or years. Clever, Vegeta admitted, watching a residential tower begin sliding toward a hyperspace vortex, its structure failing as gravitational forces tore it apart. Thousands of lives inside. Families. Children. Beings who had nothing to do with his conflict with Palpatine. You think I'll sacrifice victory to play hero? That my pride won't let innocent blood stain this battle. He took a deep breath, his ki sensing expanding outward across the entire planetary cityscape, feeling the force storm's pattern, analyzing its structure through principles that had nothing to do with Sith sorcery. Hyperspace wormholes operated on predictable physics. They required massive energy to maintain. They could be destabilized by introducing counter-frequency vibrations to their event horizons. You're right that I won't let them die, Vegeta said. But you made an incorrect assumption, Emperor. You assumed I have to choose. The Scion Prince split his consciousness, something he'd learned fighting multiple opponents simultaneously back in his universe. Part of his mind focused on Palpatine, tracking the Emperor's regeneration, preparing the killing blow. The other part focused on the Force storm. Vegeta raised both hands toward the sky, his aura flaring with such intensity that it became visible from orbit. Final Shine Attack. Golden energy erupted from his palms in a massive sphere that expanded outward across Coruscant's upper atmosphere. But instead of exploding destructively, the energy sphere transformed mid-flight, Vegeta manipulating its frequency in real time. The ki blast converted into a harmonic resonance wave calibrated specifically to destabilize hyperspace vortexes. The wave struck every force storm wormhole simultaneously. Space-time, already stressed by Palpatine's sorcery, couldn't handle the additional energy input. The wormholes didn't grow, they collapsed, folding back on themselves, sealing shut with thunderclap booms that shattered windows across 50 city sectors but released the buildings and speeders that had been halfway consumed. Debris that had been pulled into hyperspace reversed course, falling back into real space. The residential tower that had been sliding toward oblivion crashed back onto its foundation, structurally damaged but intact. Emergency anti-grav systems kicked in across the rescue zones, catching falling civilians before they could hit the ground far below. Vegeta had just saved millions of lives while simultaneously maintaining combat readiness. Single-handedly. In seconds. Palpatine's regenerating face showed absolute shock. Impossible. You countered Sith sorcery using, what? Raw energy. Mathematical precision. His yellow eyes burned with frustrated disbelief. The Force storm required decades of study to master. You neutralized it through calculation. I'm not just a warrior, Vegeta replied, descending toward the Emperor with deliberate menace. I'm a scientist. I trained in gravity chambers of my own design. I calculated energy outputs to maximize efficiency. Every transformation I've achieved came from understanding my body's biological processes and forcing them to evolve. His ascended Super Saiyan aura pulsed with barely contained power. Your force is mystical. Mine is scientific. And science always beats magic when you understand the underlying principles. The Scion Prince appeared directly in front of Palpatine, moving faster than the Emperor's precognition could predict because Vegeta was no longer following patterns, he was creating new ones with each movement. His hand gripped Palpatine's throat, lifting the ancient Sith Lord off the ground with casual strength. You gambled everything on that Force storm, Vegeta said coldly. Burned your body's reserves, destabilized your connection to those dark side nexuses, sacrificed your combat readiness to create a moral dilemma. It was a good strategy. Against someone who was only powerful, it might have worked. His grip tightened, making Palpatine choke. But I am not just powerful. I am Vegeta, Prince of all Scions. I have defeated emperors, outlasted gods, and transcended mortality itself. You were never going to win this. Darth Vader, watching from below, made a decision that would define the galaxy's future. He could intervene, try to save his master through desperate tactics, loyalty overriding logic. Or he could let this play out, let the Empire's architect fall, and see what emerged from the chaos. His hand stayed away from his lightsaber. Anakin Skywalker's ghost, buried deep beneath years of dark side corruption and mechanical augmentation, whispered that perhaps this was destiny correcting itself. Perhaps the Sith deserved to fall, brought down not by Jedi but by something beyond the Force's ancient binary entirely. Palpatine, struggling in Vegeta's grip, managed a bloody smile. Kill me then. Prince. Prove that, strength alone, is sufficient. But know this, he coughed, blood spattering his withered lips. The dark side is eternal. You may destroy me, but others will rise. The Empire will adapt. You have won one battle, not the war. I know, Vegeta replied. That's why I'm not going to kill you. Shock replaced the pain in Palpatine's expression. What? Vegeta's grip shifted from Palpatine's throat to the front of his robes, holding the Emperor at eye level. Killing you would be merciful. Quick. Final. You'd become a martyr, and someone would eventually continue your work. The Scion Prince's expression was cold calculation mixed with vindictive satisfaction. No. Instead, I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to leave you alive, broken, and powerless. A living example of what happens when someone challenges a Scion. With his free hand, Vegeta reached into Palpatine's chest, not physically, but through key manipulation, targeting the Emperor's connection to the Force itself. In his universe, he'd learned to sense and manipulate life energy directly. The Force was similar enough that with focus, with precise application of power, he could disrupt it. What are you, N.O.? Palpatine's scream was raw terror as he felt what Vegeta was doing. The Scion Prince was severing his connection to the dark side, not through force techniques but through brute manipulation of the energy pathways themselves. It was like having your nervous system rewritten by someone who didn't understand or care about the consequences. The process took 15 seconds. When Vegeta released him, Palpatine collapsed to the ground, gasping, his ancient body suddenly feeling every year of his unnatural lifespan. The dark side didn't answer his call. The Force didn't respond to his will. He was mundane. Powerless. Just an extremely old man whose body had been sustained by sorcery that no longer functioned. There, Vegeta said with satisfaction. Now you're just another ordinary tyrant. No Force to protect you. No Sith mastery to sustain you. Just a mortal man who built an empire through manipulation and fear. He turned to Darth Vader, who stood motionless, processing what he'd just witnessed. He's yours now. Do whatever you want with him. My business with the Empire's leadership is concluded. Vader approached slowly, his mechanical breathing the only sound in the destroyed city block. He looked down at his master, the being who had seduced him to the dark side, who had rebuilt him as more machine than man, who had ruled the galaxy through him for 2 decades. What shall I do with you, my master? Vader asked, the honorific now carrying ambiguity. Palpatine looked up at his apprentice with desperate eyes. Vader. Lord Vader, you must help me. We can find a way to restore my power. Together we can. The Sith tradition demands that the apprentice surpass the master, Vader interrupted, his voice carrying cold finality. For years, I believed I never could. That your mastery was absolute. That my mechanical limitations prevented me from ever truly challenging you. He ignited his lightsaber, the red blade humming ominously. I was wrong. I was simply patient. Waiting for the right opportunity. Palpatine's face transformed from desperation to hatred. You dare betray me? After everything I gave you? I made you strong. I gave you purpose when you had nothing. You made me a slave, Vader corrected. Chained to your will through pain, through fear, through the belief that the dark side offered the only path to power. He glanced at Vegeta, who was watching the exchange with detached interest. This Scion showed me something in our battle. Showed me that power doesn't require corruption. That strength can exist without the dark side's manipulation. He defeated me utterly, but he also freed me from a fundamental lie. The lightsaber descended. When it rose again, Emperor Palpatine, Dark Lord of the Sith, architect of the Jedi Purge, ruler of the Galactic Empire for over 2 decades, was dead. Vegeta nodded approvingly. Good. You learned the lesson I was trying to teach. He looked up at the sky, sensing the chaos spreading across Coruscant as news of the Emperor's fall rippled through Imperial communications. Your galaxy is about to descend into civil war. Your galaxy is about to descend into civil war. Multiple factions fighting for control of the power vacuum. Standard Imperial collapse pattern. And you? Vader asked, deactivating his lightsaber. What will you do now? You've defeated the Empire's greatest powers. Proven your superiority. Will you claim the throne? Rule this galaxy as its new emperor? The Scion Prince actually laughed at that. Rule? No. I'm a warrior, not a politician. Governance bores me. Bureaucracy is torture. He began ascending into the air, his ascended Super Saiyan aura glowing against Coruscant's artificial twilight. I came to this dimension seeking worthy opponents. I found, training exercises. Moderate challenges at best. This galaxy needs to grow much stronger before it can offer what I seek. You're leaving. For now. I sense other dimensions, other realities accessible from here. Perhaps one of them will offer genuine challenges. Vegeta paused, floating 100 meters up, looking down at the shattered city block, the destroyed palace, the fallen emperor. But I'll return eventually. Train your force users. Develop stronger warriors. Build something worth testing myself against. Because when I come back, I expect this galaxy to have evolved beyond its current pathetic state. And if we haven't? Vader asked, genuine curiosity in his mechanical voice. Vegeta's smirk was predatory. Then I'll enjoy the warm-up exercises. The Scion Prince's aura flared one final time, and he rocketed into the sky, breaking through Coruscant's atmosphere in seconds, his golden form visible across multiple continents as he ascended. Within minutes, his energy signature left the system entirely, heading toward the dimensional barriers between realities, seeking the next challenge, the next opportunity to prove Scion's superiority. Behind him, he left a galaxy fundamentally transformed. The Empire's invincibility shattered. The Force's absolute authority questioned. Power structures that had endured for millennia suddenly rendered obsolete by the demonstration that raw strength, properly applied, could overcome any amount of strategy, wisdom, or mystical mastery. Darth Vader stood in the ruins of his master's ambitions, the body of Emperor Palpatine at his feet, and realized that the galaxy's future was now completely uncertain. The rebellion would capitalize on this chaos. Imperial warlords would fragment the military. Force traditions would be forced to re-evaluate their philosophies in light of what they'd witnessed. And somewhere, far beyond the Outer Rim, beyond even the unknown regions, a golden-haired warrior was tearing through dimensional barriers, seeking gods and monsters powerful enough to satisfy his eternal hunger for combat. The Scion Prince had invaded the Star Wars galaxy. He had consumed its military might, shattered its force traditions, and reshaped its political landscape through sheer overwhelming power. And when he left behind a single, undeniable truth. In a universe of mystical energy and ancient philosophies, sometimes the simplest answer was still the correct one. Raw power, properly applied, could overcome anything. The Force itself had learned to fear something from beyond its comprehension. And the legend of Prince Vegeta, the warrior who defeated Vader, killed the Emperor, and left the galaxy forever changed, would echo across star systems for generations, reminder that no matter how powerful you believed yourself to be, somewhere in the infinite multiverse, there was always someone stronger. The galaxy far, far away would never be the same. What began as a dimensional intrusion, a warrior prince seeking worthy opponents, became a watershed moment that redefined power itself. Vegeta's arrival shattered the illusion that the Force represented absolute authority, that Sith and Jedi held monopoly on transcendent strength. In the weeks following the Emperor's death, the galaxy did exactly as Vegeta predicted, it fractured. Imperial warlords claimed sectors. The Rebel Alliance struggled to maintain cohesion without a clear enemy. Darth Vader disappeared into the unknown regions, seeking solitude and understanding of what he'd witnessed. Force-sensitive beings across 1,000 worlds reported visions of golden fire and a power beyond their comprehension. The Ghost crew, having witnessed Vegeta's arrival firsthand, became unlikely historians, spreading the truth about what happened, ensuring that no faction could control the narrative. Mon Mothma and the rebellion adapted their strategies, understanding that the galaxy's future would be shaped by those who learned from what the Scion Prince had demonstrated, that evolution, adaptation, and the willingness to break your own limits mattered more than tradition. The Force itself seemed different somehow, as if Vegeta's presence had introduced variables that hadn't existed before, contaminated an ancient equation with foreign mathematics. Some Jedi survivors reported that their connection to the light side felt clearer, less restricted. Dark side users found their corruption more difficult to sustain. Reality itself was adjusting. And in dimensions beyond comprehension, accessible only through tears in spacetime, Prince Vegeta continued his eternal hunt. He had found what he sought in that galaxy, not the ultimate challenge he'd hoped for, but the reminder that strength without purpose was hollow, that even the mightiest warrior needed something worth protecting or surpassing. Perhaps one day he would return, when that galaxy had grown stronger, when its warriors had learned to push beyond their limitations, when the Force users had evolved beyond their binary philosophies. Until then, the legend endured. A golden-haired prince from beyond the stars who proved that power was never absolute, that limits existed only to be broken, and that somewhere in the infinite multiverse, someone was always training to become stronger than gods. The Force had bound all things for millennia. But Vegeta taught the galaxy that some things transcend even the Force itself. And in doing so, he gave them the greatest gift any warrior could offer, the knowledge that their limits were self-imposed, and strength was always within reach for those willing to sacrifice everything to claim it. May the Force be with you. More stories await.